And it's another fabulous day in Wellington Wells. The sun is up, and the weather is overcast and only slightly rainy, with occasional patches of lovely sunshine. Wakey, wakey, everyone. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning, dear friends. Good morning to you. Well, I hope you all had a lovely night's sleep with lovely dreams. It's shaping up to be a wonderful morning, and I think I can promise you that it's just going to get better all through the day. We all forget things from time to time, so don't forget the most important thing. Is it your tea? Is it your muesli? Is it bacon and eggs? Is it toast? Did you forget to butter your toast? No, don't be silly. It's your daily joy. Never forget to take your joy, and I guarantee your day will go swimmingly. So, let's take a look at today's schedule. What's going on in the village of Hamlin? Well, chatting and greeting and smiling and laughing, of course, and breakfast, lunch and dinner, and work. But at 3, I hope you'll all take a quick break for our daily recreational activity. Today we will all gather round the telly for a rousing round of Simon Says. Well, I won't be gathering round the telly. I'll be in the telly. Just like every day, I'll be playing it with you. And then there'll be cake and prizes for all winners, and everyone's a winner, and everyone will be there. So don't miss it, or you're a rotten egg. But seriously, unless you have an awfully good reason, such as 2 broken legs, do be a sport at 3 o'clock, won't you? We love your company. And now, the hot new song from our favorite band. See you soon. And it's another fabulous day in Wellington Wells. The weather is a bit wet, but that's the lovely thing about English weather. The sun always comes out in the end. So come on out, or you'll miss it. Wakey, wakey, everyone. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning, dear friends. Good morning to you. I do hope you had a lovely night's sleep and left all the troubles of the day in dreamland. That is, if you have any troubles. Remember what was bothering you yesterday? I certainly hope not. Well, today is going to be even better. Now, we all forget things from time to time, so don't forget the most important thing. Did you leave the stove on? Did you remember to shave? Did you wash your hands? Did you brush your teeth? I hope you did all these things, but they're not the most important thing. And that is, as we all know, did you take your joy today? Never forget to take your joy, and I guarantee your day will go as smooth as velvet. So, let's take a look at today's schedule. What's going on in the village of Hamlin? Well, selling and buying, of course, and wandering hither and thither, and marketing and talking about the weather, and smiling and laughing, of course. I insist on it. But at 3, I hope you'll all take a quick break for our daily recreational activity. Today we'll once again all gather round the telly for a rousing round of Simon Says. Oh, I wish I could join you, good people. Actually, I will join you. I'll be doing it from this chair. I'll be calling the tune, if you will, just like every day. I'll be your Simon, except when I'm not. And don't forget, there'll be cake and prizes for all winners, and everyone's a winner, and everyone will be there. So don't miss it, or the villagers will break your legs. And then where will you be when Simon says, jump like a frog? Well, you'll be writhing on the ground, won't you? But seriously, unless you have an awfully good reason, such as being recently deceased, do be a sport at 3 o'clock, won't you? We love your company. And now, the brilliant new song from our favourite new band. See you soon. And it's another brilliant day in Wellington Wells. The weather is a little rainy, but I think I can assure you that it's going to dry up to merely a bit overcast. That's the wonderful thing about English weather. You always know you're going to get a little bit of rain, but it's never going to be too cold or too hot. Well, it's not time to hibernate, and you're not a bear, so come on out. Or if you are a bear, then I'm very impressed that you know how to turn on a television set. Wakey, wakey, everyone. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning, dear friends. Good morning to you. Well, I was up all night fretting. I'm joking. I had a fantastic night's sleep. Actually, I can't remember a single thing about last night. And that's how I like it. How about you? If you're taking your joy, then you shouldn't have any trouble sleeping. And if you missed some, well, what on earth are you waiting for? Get back on your dose. And I think I can promise you your day will go as sweet as a summer breeze. Well, what's going on today in the village of Hamlin? The circus is coming to town. Ha ha! No, I'm sorry, I fooled you. It's just going to be a regular, wonderful, ordinary, spectacular day. But of course, we'll interrupt the day because, well, we love to do that, with our daily recreational activity. What are we going to do for fun today? Well, how about Simon Says? I love Simon Says, don't you? It's been too long since we've played it, hasn't it? Now, I'm a bit vague about the details. No, really. So, I think we ought to play it today, just to be sure. Well, you can never be too careful. So at 3, gather in front of the telly for a rousing round of Simon Says. No, wait. I didn't say Simon Says gather. No, stop. We're not playing it yet, so you're all right. And don't forget, there will be cake and prizes for all winners, and everyone's a winner, and everyone will be there. So don't miss it, or you'll stick out like a downer. We can't have downers, right? Brilliant. And now, the catchy new song from our favourite new band. Wakey, wakey, everyone. And it's another fabulous day in Wellington Wells. I've looked at the weather report for you, and apparently it's going to be variable. Isn't that a surprise? Well, be sure to bring an umbrella or two as you go out on your daily rounds, and you'll be right as rain. Right as rain? I didn't even mean it like that. Well, wakey, wakey, everyone. Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Good morning, dear friends. Good morning to you. Well, if you're in bed, you know what to do. Hop out, yawn, stretch, and get the tea ready. And while the kettle's on, be sure to take your morning joy if you haven't already. We wouldn't be British without our tea, and we wouldn't be wellies without our joy, would we? And as you're sipping your tea, be sure to smile at just how lucky we are to be in Wellington Wells, where there are always rainbows after the rain. The bobbies always smile, and no one ever feels hungry or sad. It's good to smile as early as possible in the morning. That way, you know you've had enough joy. Well, what's going on in the village of Hamlin? This is interesting. At 10 o'clock, Mr. Hewitt for Dalrymple will be giving hopscotch lessons right out in front of Mrs. Chippy Park. Now, if you don't know how to hopscotch or need to brush up on the rules, be sure to attend Mr. Dalrymple's lessons. Yeah. And I see here that the Church of St. Genesius is continuing its tradition of Simon Says competitions with celebrity callers. Oh, yes. And today the celebrity caller is going to be Dr. Faraday. You calling again? Yeah. Well, quite right, and, nope. I believe I made a mistake. I've confused myself. The celebrity caller will be, Marjorie Flowerdew. And if you win the competition, Mrs. Flowerdew promises to come take a look at your flower garden, if you have one. And if you don't, she'll let you clip a few buds from hers. Well, that certainly seems worth playing for, doesn't it? So, come on, get up, get dressed, and get out there. Don't let the day slip away or you'll feel like a downer. And we can't have downers, right? Smashing. And now, the catchy new song from our favorite new band. Wakey wakey, everyone. It's another lovely day in Wellington Wells. Now, in case we have any visitors today, here are a few tips that will help you get along with everyone. And the most important one, of course, is don't forget to take your joy. And drink plenty of water, too. Fortunately, there's joy in the water. And eat plenty of nutritious food. And may I be the first to recommend our local delicacy, V-meat. Of course, be very careful to stay away from downers. Fortunately, most of them live in the Garden District, and, well, no decent person goes there. It's full of dangerous maniacs and lunatics. If someone's dressed in rags, tell them to go back where they belong, and obey all official signs. They're for your safety and protection. Make friends with your fellow citizens. Talk to them, visit them. Wellies love a friendly guest. And we wellies do love our games. It's important to stay young at heart, so use our playgrounds. Well, after all, if you don't, who on earth will? And obey police officers. They're there to protect you. Remember, they're the only ones who are allowed out at night. Wellington Wells is a delightful place. If you just do like everybody else and you take your joy, you'll have a splendid time. And if you don't, well, one less mouth to feed, eh? And now, it's time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. And today's first letter is from Charles Hawtrey of St. James Parade. Dear Uncle Jack, I always get eliminated early in Simon Says. It's so frustrating because I love Simon Says and I don't get to play very much of it before I get confused and I'm out. What can I do? Well, Charles, I'm so glad you care about Simon Says. It's one of my favorite games, as you probably know. In fact, sometimes I wish someone would come and be the announcer so I could come to Hamlin and play Simon Says. Say, what a lovely idea. Why don't you come here and I'll go there? Ah, yes, but that doesn't solve your problem, does it? How can you enjoy Simon Says better? Well, I can't promise you a way to be less confused. After all, a bit of confusion is normal when you're taking your joy, and you don't want to cut down on your joy, do you? No, of course not. Don't be ridiculous. But look, just because you're out doesn't mean you can't keep playing. Just go to the sidelines and keep playing. After all, no one's going to arrest you for continuing to wave your arms around when I say wave your arms around, eh? I mean, when I say Simon Says move your arms around, right? Good. Well, I hope that's helpful, Charles, and thank you very much for writing. Here's another letter from Mrs. Julian Overshaw of St. Giles Crescent. Mrs. Overshaw writes, Dear Uncle Jack, I found the most peculiar thing in my garden. Perhaps you can help me identify it. It has the general shape of a garden gnome. That is, it is short and squat and has a rounded, pointy top, just like a gnome's pointy hat, but is smooth and metal, and nothing is painted on it. What is it? Should I make it into a lamp? If I get the hat off, it would make a perfect umbrella stand. I think I can get the hat off if I heat up the bottom part in the fireplace. What do you think? Oh, well, Mrs. Overshaw, I think what you might have here is an unexploded artillery shell, so no, my dear, I would not particularly recommend heating it up in the fireplace. In fact, I would recommend not touching your garden gnome any further. Especially, do not drop it or drop anything on it. Now, if any of the heroes of the Home Army are listening to this broadcast, and I know some of you are, would you mind dropping by Mrs. Gillian Overshaw's place at 25 St. Giles Crescent and help her in disposing of this rather peculiar garden gnome? Thank you. There's a good chap. Well, this one is from Mrs. Susan Brimble of Northumberland Passage. Dear Mr. Worthing. Oh, Susan. There's no need to be so formal. You can call me Jack, or Uncle Jack. But don't call me Mr. Worthing, because that's my father. And definitely don't call me Mrs. Worthing. Anyway, dear Mr. Worthing, my husband stays a really long time in the bath. He comes home after work and immediately runs a bath. And he stays in it until it's time for dinner. Sometimes he even stays in there after I tell him it's time for dinner. Last night, I even brought him his dinner in the bath, and he left it there on the side of the sink. What's a wife to do? Well, Susan, or Sue. May I call you Sue? I'd like to think I can call you Sue. Susan, I'm not a doctor. I only play one on TV. But I do know some doctors, and I asked them about your husband. They think your husband might just need a little more joy in his life. He seems to be trying to soak it in through his skin, and, well, that takes a very long time, and it'll turn him into a prune. So please be sure that your husband pops a joy or two when he wakes up, and a joy or two before he goes to bed, and I think you'll be seeing a lot more of them in a considerably drier state. There are very few problems that joy won't make better. All right, Susie? Good. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for more cheery answers to your questions about your life in Wellington Wells. This is Jack Worthing saying cheerio, and on with your day. I'll see you soon. And now it's time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answered your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. And today's first letter is from Rupert Scrivener of 12 Spanker Lane. Mr. Scrivener asks, Uncle Jack, that's me, is it possible to take too much joy? Well, Mr. Scrivener, it is possible, but you really have to work at it. You have to take a great deal of joy before you experience any toxic effects. Joy is quite safe in the short term, and you can take up to 10 pills per day if you're a man of average weight. However, there are side effects, as we all know. Joy not only makes you happy, it suppresses bad old memories. If you take too much, it may temporarily suppress memories that you actually need to get around. Do you have trouble identifying the people in your house, and yet they seem quite friendly and affectionate? Do you find yourself wondering exactly what your house looks like and how to get to it from wherever you are? Does it seem as if the shops and the streets have all been moved around behind your back, and the map that you have in your head of your environment doesn't quite match the one in your memory? Well then, you may have taken rather too much joy. It might be best to ask a friend to take you home so you can sleep it off. All right, good. This one is from Royston Farrell of Meadfold Passage. Dear Mr. Worthing. Well, there's no need to call me Mr. Royston. We're all friends here, aren't we? And besides, Mr. Worthing is me father. Anyway, my question is, writes Mr. Farrell, what's all this talk about a joy spiral? Dear Mr. Farrell, the so-called joy spiral is an imaginary syndrome in which you take too much joy, then you forget you've taken your joy, so you take more joy, and then you forget that you've taken that, and so on and so on and so on. But Mr. Farrell, I can assure you that no such thing exists as a joy spiral. I mean, you might as well believe in the Tooth Fairy or Santa Claus or those people who tell you that we lost the war. It's ridiculous. Long before any such joy spiral catches hold of you, you'll probably pass out, and when you wake up, your memory will be restored. Yes, it's true that you might be a bit confused about where things are, but any passerby will be happy to point you in the right direction. All right, Mr. Farrell? Good, thank you for writing. And, hang on a minute. A scented envelope. I like those. And this one here is from Mrs. Joan Tamlin Goggin of Shagbear Wood in central Wellington Wells. Mrs. Tamlin Goggin writes, I know we beat the Germans and made them abandon our sceptred isle, but how did we do it? Didn't they have tanks? Mrs. Tamlin Goggin, thank you very much for writing. Yes, it's easy to be confused by the events of those long-gone days, and you're right, indeed they did have tanks, and quite a few of them. And if ever you're inside of the Victory Memorial Camp, you can see those German tanks lined up as if it were 1948. But I'll tell you how we beat them. With English cleverness, English patience, and English fortitude. That's how. If you want more details, and I don't know why you'd want more details, but if you did want more, you can get a wonderful book called Our Glorious Victory by Jack Worthing. Yes, that's me. And it's available in just about every bookstore in Wellington Wells, and it's full of questions from all your favourite wartime heroes, from the generals to the common Tommy trudging through the mud. But you already know the lesson, Mrs. Tamlin Goggin. Patience and fortitude. Now stop dwelling in the past and enjoy our English sunshine, why don't you? Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. I hope this has been informative. Tune in again tomorrow for more fascinating glimpses into the lives of your fellow citizens of Wellington Wells. This is Jack Worthing saying, cheerio, and on with your day. I'll see you soon. And now it's time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. And my first letter is from Mrs. Emily Cluley of Falkland Road. Dear Uncle Jack, I adore your show and thank you for answering my question. I have a big Victorian bed that my husband inherited from his grandmum, but most nights he crawls off to sleep in the small bedroom in the small bed we have there. He promises that it's not because I snore, but he won't say why he does, and I'm not sure he even knows. He seems a little sad. What should I do? Dear Emily. May I call you Emily? Your letter is quite touching, but I think you know the answer, don't you? Yes. You see, if he seems a little sad, there's only one possible answer. He's off his joy a bit, isn't he? Yes. You must encourage him to take his pills, even if he seems a bit defiant. Take him to a doctor. There's no sense in sleeping in a rickety little bed in a small room when you can sleep in a proper English bed in a proper master bedroom. And quite frankly, even if you did snore, if he's taking his joy, then he should sleep soundly regardless. Just make sure he falls asleep before you do, and you both should be fine. Thank you for writing, Emily, and do keep me posted about your progress. Well, that was a bit of a dreary letter, wasn't it? I'm sorry. Forget I read it, will you? Let's take a look at another one, shall we? This one is from Mrs. Purdy Robbins Handley of Oldfield Park. Dear Uncle Jack, my husband won't take off his happy face at home. He won't even take it off in bed. He's that healthy. He says he has nightmares if he takes it off, but it's a little but it's a little creepy in it. She actually wrote in it. And she says, I mean, he could be anyone. Well, Purdy, are you sure he actually is your husband? Well, you can't be too careful these days, can you? No, but seriously, Purdy, we do what it takes to stay happy, don't we? And a happy mask is scientifically sculpted to keep you happy. You see, when your facial muscles are shaped in a smile, well, you can't help feeling happy. Now, normally, I would suggest he take more joy. But some people do have a slight intolerance to joy. Now, if your husband is one of these people, he may just be doing what he needs in order to keep himself up. Certainly, if he's having nightmares without his happy face, well, why on earth should he sleep without it, when he can sleep with it and not have nightmares? So, come on, have a little conjugal consideration and appreciate his good qualities. Assuming he is, after all, not an imposter. Thank you for writing, Purdy. This one is from Poppy Findlay of Twerton Manor. Dear Uncle Jack, I have a lovely row of tulips in front of my house. I should say, I used to have, because they're half gone, and I found a great big pile of tulip tops in the rubbish. Has some animal come and eaten half my tulip bulbs? Is it a badger? How can I catch it and eat it? Well, Poppy, I'm sorry to tell you it's extremely unlikely that you have a badger, given that the tulip tops were placed in the rubbish. I think that you might actually be dealing with a hungry human. Did you know that you can eat tulip bulbs? Yes. Actually, there's a fabulous and hilarious story from the Dutch tulip mania of the 1600s. See, there was this sailor who visited a friend of his, and he saw an onion on his table, and he ate it. Now, it turned out to be a rare tulip bulb worth hundreds of guineas. And he ate it. Can you imagine the kerfuffle that he heard? Well, I hope he enjoyed it. Actually, there's no word what happened to the sailor, but I bet he took the next ship out. Hope he wasn't hanged. Yes. Anyway, do you by chance happen to live near the garden district? Sometimes the unfortunate souls who live near there come into the village, and, well, it wouldn't surprise me at all if it was them that ate your tulip bulbs. But I doubt there's anything you can do about it, except watch your remaining flowers and call the police if you see anyone near them. In the meantime, I imagine that if you could eat tulip bulbs, you could probably eat the tops too with a bit of cooking. Well, it couldn't hurt anyway, eh? Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time, when I hope you'll join us and we'll answer all your questions about life in Wellington Wells. I'll see you soon. And now it's time for I Hear You, the show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in beautiful Wellington Wells. This one is from Richard Starkey of Biddleston Road. Dear Uncle Jack, is it true there are blind albino mole people living beneath our fair city? That's what my friends say. I thought I saw one too, but I wasn't sure, as we'd all had a bit too much to drink, and my memory, of course, is a bit fuzzy. Dear Richard, of course there aren't mole people. This isn't London. There are no ancient catacombs or old bomb shelters underneath our streets. And of course the Wellington Under is completely blocked up. And human beings have not suddenly grown claws to make their own tunnels through the dirt, thank goodness. What an imagination your friend has. Now, of course, there are the poor benighted wastrels in the garden district, which is reason enough not to go there if you need a reason. Not to mention the unexploded bombs, the rusty scraps of metal, and holes that you can fall into. And I don't need to tell you about how dangerous it is outside the walls. I wouldn't even think about going there. But you can be perfectly sure that absolutely no one is moving around underneath the pavement. Well, I'm glad that's settled. This one is from John Lydon of Benwell Road. Dear Jack. Well, I guess he isn't the sort of fellow to cry uncle, Mr. Lydon? Dear Jack, there's a stranger in my house who looks just like my wife. And she says she's my wife too. What has been done with my real wife, and who did this to me? Your help is much appreciated in this matter. Well, it looks like Mr. Lydon has been experiencing one of the odd side effects of joy. Now, it does happen from time to time. It's called capgras delusion, and it's not unheard of. Mr. Lydon, if you're listening, go see a doctor. They may be able to adjust your dose or give you an analog. And if anyone who's listening that actually knows Mr. Lydon, who lives on Benwell Road, do inform a nearby doctor that Mr. Lydon might need a visit. I'm sure everything will come out roses. And remember, by the way, don't hesitate to go see a doctor if you need any medical attention. They'll fix up that cut right away. And they always check your joy level and make sure that it's where it should be. Good. This one is from Edwin Powell of Hoylake. Dear Mr. Worthing. Oh, Edwin. Let's be friends, shall we? Actually, I'm just going to edit this one a bit. Dear Uncle Jack, I was cleaning out my garage, and I came up with a big pile of newspapers from the war. Yes, well, I'm not going to read the rest of this letter, because I know exactly what you should do. What do you do with a bunch of old newspaper? Well, it's the perfect thing to use to light a fire in your fireplace. The older and drier the paper, the better. Now, I wouldn't recommend using it to wrap fish. First of all, because, well, I haven't seen a fish in years. And second, because you're not a fish shop. And third of all, the paper does get a bit crumbly, and you don't want that on your food. So just burn it all up on a cold night, and you'll be glad you did. Yes, what a strange bunch of letters we have today. I'm wondering if we ought to quit while we're ahead. All right, we'll give it one more go, shall we? It smells like roses. Dear Uncle Jack. Yes, I forgot to mention who it's from. This is take another whiff. Yes, definitely rose. I wasn't mistaken. It's from Susan Jane Ballion of Chislehurst Vicarage. And she writes, Dear Uncle Jack, I keep getting lost in my own neighborhood. I've lived there all my life, but lately it seems like they're moving the buildings around on me. It's most disconcerting. I'm not old or anything, and I haven't been hit on the head, at least not that I remember. They're not actually moving the buildings, are they? That's what she asked. Dear Susie, may I call you Susie? I think it suits you. Dear Susie, I'm glad to say that you clearly are taking your joy. Joy is what helps us forget the past and move into the radiant future. And getting lost is just a mild side effect. Fortunately, there's an easy solution. Carry a map. Actually, in fact, carry one in each pocket. That way you don't have to remember which pocket your map is in. You know, I'm so delighted when I can so easily help a listener. And here we are. Yes, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for more advice and news from our listeners and watchers. This is Jack Worthing saying cheerio, and on with your day. See you soon. And now, it's once again time for I Hear You, the part of our show where Jack Worthing, that's me, answers your letters and questions about our life in Wellington Wells. Let's see what Rosalie Millay Scott has to say. Wait a second. Do I detect a hint of roses? Oh, Rosalie. If this is a love letter, it's going to be very embarrassing when I read it out in the air. Dear Uncle Jack. Well, that's better, isn't it? Whose uncle are you? Are you my uncle? I don't remember having an uncle. Dear Rosalie. Oh, how I wish I were your uncle. Because you seem like a lovely girl. But I'm not biologically anybody's uncle. I just feel like I'm an uncle. And many of your fellow viewers feel like I'm their uncle too. So it just sort of grew like dandelions. And you know how difficult it is to uproot dandelions. They just keep growing back. Which is lovely because you can eat them. Did you know that? But I digress. The way uncles do, eh? All you need to know, my dear, is that I feel as fond of you as any uncle ever could. And I hope you feel just as fond of me. All right, Rosalie? Good. This one is from... I believe it's from... yes, it's from Dermot Nightingale of Gascoigne House, Upper Borough Walls. Dear Uncle Jack, a few days ago, I saw a bunch of citizens chasing someone down Milk Street. They ran right past me, so naturally I was swept up in the flow, and soon I was chasing the man down the street as well. And I'm pretty sure we caught up with him. But I can't remember what happened next. I think we beat him, but I can't remember if we killed him or not. Do you know who he was, and did we kill him? Do you know why we were chasing him? Well, dear Dermot, I don't think you should worry about this sort of thing. If a whole bunch of citizens were chasing someone down the street, I think we can safely say that that someone did something wrong. After all, there's only one of him. There's lots of you, so you win the vote. Anyway, what's past is past. And we've all done things that weren't perfect. Listen, if we spent all our time worrying about the things that we've done, well, we'd never be able to enjoy our day. So feel better. Pop a few extra joy today, and I bet in the morning you won't even remember what you were so upset about. I'm so glad I was able to help. Well, I did so enjoy hearing from all of you, my dear listeners. Yes, I love these letters. This one is from Mr. Fitzroy Dix of Monmouth Place. Dear Uncle Jack, I haven't been feeling entirely well these past few days. I feel rather tired, and it's hard to get out of bed. So I asked my husband to get this letter for you. Oh dear, I hope this isn't going to be a medical question. I've already called the doctors once today. No, it isn't. I've noticed an odd thing. On the roof across from my bedroom, I've noticed an awful lot of chickens. They just fly up there and watch me through my open window. The peculiar thing is, they're all black with sharp black beaks, and all they do all day is go caw, caw, caw. Why are there chickens on my neighbour's roof? I've never noticed them there before. Dear Mrs. Dix, I think it's likely that those are not chickens at all, but rather I think they might be crows. Crows are blackbirds that sit on rooftops and caw. Now, they may have noticed that you're not stirring from your bed, and they're there trying to keep you company while you recover. Isn't that sweet of them, eh? But I'm a little bit worried about that open window of yours. You don't want to catch a cold, eh, from the draught? Perhaps you can ask your husband to shut it the next time you see him. And this one is from Cedric Tullett of Oldfield Park. Dear Uncle Jack, this morning I was cleaning up my house, and I came across a box of military medals. I'm pretty sure they're my military medals because my father was never in the war because he had a bit of a limp. So they must be mine. I'd like to know what they're for. All I remember during the war was retreating and then the surrender. And then we all took off our uniforms, and that's all I can remember. So how could I have even won one medal? Yes, well, thank you for the very poignant questions, Mr. Tullett. And I, for one, salute you during your service during the war, sir. And I think I can assure you that the next war will be a string of English victories like you've never even imagined. After all, as we all know, the English always win in the end. Good. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. I do hope that you found these letters not only interesting, but useful to you in your own life. Do keep those letters coming. In fact, with Victory Day coming up, please let me know how you're planning to spend the holiday, and the reader with the most amazing plans shall win a prize. Tune in again tomorrow for more cheery answers to your questions about your life in Wellington Wells. This is Jack Worthing saying cheerio, and on with your day. I'll see you soon. And now it's time to read some of the letters our audience writes to Jack Worthing. That's me, Uncle Jack. First we have Mrs. H.K. Chesterfield of Purlewin's Drive, Maidenhome. And she writes, sometimes, when I look out at my window at the garden district at night, I think I see fires. I assumed it was the bobbies keeping themselves warm, but once I saw a whole lot of fires out on Wednesday's Hill. They're not having some sort of police convention, are they? And I swear I could hear chanting. Well, Mrs. Chesterfield, I shouldn't worry. Sometimes, the moon reflects in the windows, and then if there's a wind knocking against that window, it can create a sort of flicker effect. Now, my guess is that your curtain rod has fallen down. If you just fix up your curtain rod and draw the blinds close at night, you'll find you're no longer worrying about fires in the garden district. Instead, you'll think about how cozy we all are in our houses at night. And now, yes, let's go to this chap, Mr. Nigel Higginbotham of Bellis Road, St. George. And he writes, how long can this go on? Well, that's odd, isn't it? That's all he wrote. There's another side. It continues, how long has this been going on? Well, that's a rather strange one, isn't it? Do you know, I think this must be some sort of riddle. Yes, and if it is a riddle and one of you clever clogs have a clever answer, please drop a note to Jack Worthing, that's me, at the broadcast tower, and, I'll be sure to let everyone else know it. I almost forgot. It's time for the secret word of the day. I'm going to say a word, and ladies, if you can get a bobby to say that word, you're allowed to kiss them. But you're not allowed to say that word to them because that'll be cheating. All right? The secret word of the day is epistemology. Now, it'll help you to know that epistemology is the study of how we know things. All right? Well, good luck, ladies. And remember, no telling them the word first. I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in later for more Uncle Jack. Welcome to today's edition of Humour Hour, the show where you tell me jokes. Well, actually, I tell the jokes and you send them in. And the first joke comes from Winston Smith of Basingstoke Road. Let's see what Winston has to tell us. Dear Uncle Jack, I love your show, especially Humour Hour, blah, 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 blah. And here's one for you that always cracks us up. Question: how can you tell a German from a pickle? Answer: you can't. You can't tell a German anything. Very good, Winston Smith. Thank you for that. You can't tell a German anything. And this one here is from Cyril Price of Wexley Crescent. Cyril Price. My grandfather was a crack shot. Why, he shot 5 Germans, and that was only last year. Yes, I mean, you can never be too careful, can you? That's from Mr. Cyril Price of Wexley Crescent. Thank you, Cyril. It's very funny. Now, what do we have now? This is from Mr. Michael Tunbridge of Upper Stokely Road. Question: what did the German say as he pushed his brother off a cliff? Answer: look, Mama, no hands! I love it. No hands! It's very good indeed. Those Germans. This one here is from our faithful contributor, yes, Mr. Persky Blatyang. What have you got for us today, Mr. Persky Blatyang? Question: what do you call an angry German? Answer: a sauerkraut. Hang on a minute. I don't get it. Joke? Of course it is. I don't understand. Is this a joke? Why would you call it a sauerkraut? Is this some kind of English word play? Mr. Persky Blatyang, very good. Mr. Persky Blatyang, as I said, of Duke of Leicester Street. And this is from Mrs. Helen Corcoran of Orange Circle. What's the best way to start a German joke? Answer: by looking over your shoulder. Yes, that's very good, looking over your shoulder. It's funny and it's also very sound advice, eh? Here we have one from Mrs. Millie Dench from King's Head in Hamlin. Question. Question: what did the German say to the English clock that went tick, tick, tick? Answer: we have ways of making you talk. We have ways of making you talk. Isn't that good? I love it. Very good indeed. Well, I don't think we're going to be able to top that one. If you do hear a good joke, don't hesitate to drop us a note marked Humour Hour at our studio, 2 Marlborough House, in the centre of Wellington Wells. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time for the best in humour. See you soon. Hello. And welcome to today's edition of Humour Hour, the show where you tell me jokes. Well, I tell the jokes, but you send them in. And the first joke comes from Mr. Nigel Plaskett of the Barton. Dear Uncle Jack, I love your show and Humour Hour is my favourite. Here's one I heard at the pub. A man walks into a doctor's office. He has a cucumber up his nose and a carrot in his left ear and a banana in his right ear. What's the matter with me? He asks the doctor. The doctor replies, you're not eating properly. That's excellent, Mr. Plaskett. Very good. I can certainly think of better ways to eat a banana, if I could get one. Very good. This one from Ridgewell Hawks of Hither Lane. I went to see my old friend Angus McTavish the other day. I sense a Scottish joke coming on. Do you? I went to see my old friend Angus McTavish the other day, and he was stripping all the wallpaper off his living room wall. Angus, I said, I can't believe you're redecorating. I'm not, he said. I'm moving house. I'm moving house. You can just hear him, eh? Because we all know how stingy the Scots are. Good one, Ridgewell Hawks. Very good. Those Scottish, eh? What do we have here? This is from Antonia Peneligen of Upper Watling Street. My husband is always complaining that his eye hurts whenever he drinks tea. Well, take the spoon out of the cup, dear, I tell him. Well, you certainly have a very stupid husband, Mrs. Peneligen. Excellent jokes today, my friends. And here's one today from our faithful contributor, Mr. Persky Blatyang. Mr. Blatyang, what have you got for us today? Very good. An Englishman, a Scotsman, and an Irishman walk into a pub together. They each buy a pint of good English ale. And just as they're about to drink deep, 3 flies land in each of their pints and get stuck in the head. Well, the Englishman pushes his beer away in disgust. I'm not bloody well going to drink that, he says. The Scotsman spoons the fly out of the bubbles and drinks the pint. Waste not, want not, he says. And the Irishman grabs the fly by its wings, holds it over his mug and says, spit it out, you bastard! Spit it all out! Very good, Mr. Percy Blatyang of Duke of Leicester Street. Though I have to say, personally, I'm with the Scot on that one. Waste not, want not. Sound advice. And this is from Camilla Buckworth-Jones of Peel Street. A man goes to his doctor. He touches his shoulder and winces. Doctor, he says, it hurts when I touch my shoulder. Then he touches his nose, and it hurts when I touch my nose. And he touches his knee, and he says, it hurts when I touch my knee. The doctor says, well, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised you've got a broken finger. That's wonderful, Mr. Bickworth-Jones. Very good. What a twit. Here's one from Felicity Royston, writing from the George and Dragon, here in Hamlin. I thought I'd try the new Joy diet, she says. I didn't know there was a Joy diet. I think it's working. I've lost several days already. Yes, that's very good. One sometimes forgets a thing or two, don't we, if we overdo it. You know, I actually think it's best to write things down if they're really important. In fact, I seem to have written a note to myself just the other day. Let's see what it says. Don't forget to do it. Well, I should be a little more specific next time, eh? Well, that was a bit strange. Now, let's see what else we've got. I've got one here from Cyril Pike of Inchinnan Circle. I saw my friend Jeremy walking along the street with his wife the other day. Suddenly, she fell into a manhole, but Jeremy kept walking. I ran over to him and Good God, man, didn't you notice your wife just fell in a manhole 100 feet back? Oh, thank goodness, said Jeremy. I thought I'd gone deaf. Lovely, lovely. So thoughtful of you, Mr. Pike. I do hope they got her out of the sewer. And if not, then it's one less mouth to feed, eh? Think about that. And this one is from Corporal Lindsay Douglas of the Victory Memorial Camp. He's one of the loyal members of the Home Army. Do you know what's what's one of the toughest things about having to wear camouflage trousers? You could never find them. Oh. Ah, yes! Because they're camouflaged. Very good. Brilliant, Corporal Douglas. Very, very funny. And may I say, we salute your service. It's good to know that you're there to protect us when the next war comes. I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. If you hear a good joke, please don't hesitate to drop a note marked Humour Hour at our studio, 2 Marlborough House, in the centre of Wellington Wells. Tune in again next time for the best in English humour. See you soon. Hello. Welcome to today's edition of Humour Hour, the show where you tell me jokes. Well, actually, I tell the jokes, but you send them in. And the first joke comes from Mr. Prentice Gibson of Claverton Down. Mr. Gibson says, what do you call 3 downers at the bottom of the sea? Not enough downers. Very good. We're starting off very strong today, aren't we? This one is from Brian E. Ditton of Collier's Lane. What's the difference between a downer and a trampoline? You take off your shoes before you jump on a trampoline. How true. How very true. I mean, you don't want to damage a perfectly good trampoline, do you? Very good indeed. This is from Mrs. Jemima Hughes of Coronation Avenue. And her joke is, if you see a drowning downer, what do you throw him? I don't know, a brick? An anvil? Well, no, you can't very well throw an anvil, can you? What about a grenade? Well, no. Who has grenades these days? Answer, another downer! I told you it was good. That's wonderful. It's very good. You see, they both drown. And here's another one. How do you save a drowning downer? Answer, who cares? Very good. Lovely jokes. Lovely jokes today. Very funny indeed. And here's one from, not that one, no, this one here. It's from Clive Pritchard of Sladebrook Road. Mr. Pritchard, what do you have for us today? Question. How is a puppy like a mortally wounded downer? Answer. Eventually they'll both stop whining. Oh, Mr. Pritchard, you're quite the character, aren't you? Oh. You know, I miss my dog. What am I saying? I don't miss anything at all. I've got it all right here. Let's see what else we've got. Yes, something. We have something from our dear friend and faithful contributor, Mr. Persky Blackyoung. Yes, as you can tell from his name, Mr. Blackyoung isn't actually a real Englishman. He's an Afrikaner from South Africa, but he's doing his patriotic best to fit in. So, what do you have for us today, Mr. Blackyoung? Question. How is a downer like an apple? Answer. They both look good hanging from a tree. I'm not sure I get it. Oh, I see. Yes, very good. Hanging from a tree. And here's another one. What's the difference between a downer and the Black Plague? Well, one is a deadly organism that can destroy an entire city, and the other is a bacterium. Oh, very good. Well, I think it's going to be hard to top that one, but we must slog on, eh? It's one of our greatest English virtues. I have one here from Mr. Thomas Henchley of Longbottom Circle. What have you got for us, Mr. Henchley? Question. Why do we bury downers 20 feet underground? Answer. Because deep down, they're really nice people. Deep down, yeah. I think that's the best one of all. It really is. Very good. Remember, no one has to be a downer. But if you feel a bit down, take your joy. And if you see someone who seems a bit down, make sure he takes his joy. It's as simple as that. Happiness is a choice. And those who won't choose it are a threat to the rest of us. If you hear a good joke, please don't hesitate to drop a note marked Humour Hour at our studio, 2 Marlborough House in central Wellington Wells. Yes, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time for the best in humour. See you soon. Every now and then, you might see someone who seems to be sleeping on the path or even in the middle of the road. Now, we all know that the middle of the road is not the most comfortable place to sleep, and it's rather inconvenient for the rest of us. We might trip on them. So, what's going on? Well, the first thing to find out is if they're sleeping or if they're just lying there. Are their eyes open? If you shake them, do they make sounds? Let's suppose their eyes are open and they seem responsive to you. There's a possibility that they're feeling too sad to get up. In that case, you're dealing with a downer. And we all know what to do with a downer, don't we? Offer them joy. If they won't take it, round up a few people near you and make sure they take it. If their eyes are closed, but they seem responsive, then they may be sick. It's probably best to prop them up in a building and let a doctor know. You don't want to spend too much time with a sick person. You might get sick too. And doctors know just what to do with sick people, after all, and you don't. But what to do if they don't respond? It's possible that they've passed on. Now, there's no need for you to deal with a dead body on the street. The authorities are fully capable of dealing with any deceased citizens and will properly dispose of their remains. And what you should definitely not do is stand there gawping. You don't want to draw a crowd, and it's not healthy to stare at a dead body. It might bring you down. So just leave the body there and move on. And if you see a lot of people walking past someone in the middle of the street, well, you can safely trust that they've already realized there's nothing further they can do for that person. Just pretend that the person in the street is not there. Sooner or later they won't be. Take it from me, Uncle Jack. What's done is done, and it's best if we all move on. You will be glad you did. Well, hello there. What exactly are you doing? Yes, you there. This is Uncle Jack talking directly to you. Are you where you belong right now? And are you supposed to be doing that? These are very important questions for all of us. As patriotic citizens of Wellington Wells, it's not enough to just look out for yourself. We all have to look out for each other. And that means asking ourselves these questions every day. Are we where we're supposed to be? Are we doing what we're supposed to be doing? For if we're all doing our duty, will we preserve and thrive into the future? You never can be too careful. Take it from me, Jack Worthing. Stay where you belong and do what you should be doing, and you never have to worry. Sometimes people get confused about the garden district. We English love our gardens, don't we? And from the painted road we call home, it can look like the unrenovated areas of Wellington Wells are abloom with wildflowers. But you can never be too careful. The garden district is abloom with mortal dangers as well. Hungry wastrels and depressing downers prowl the land. And the municipal police simply do not have the resources to patrol places that no one lives. So, be sensible and stay on the painted road. It's there for your enjoyment and protection. Well, the painted road is all you know and all you need to know. Having trouble sleeping? Think it might be nice to take a walk down your street and take in the moon and stars? Well, get yourself into your kitchen and warm up a cup of milk and go take a look at the moon and the stars out of your window. It's not a bright idea to go out at night. Who knows what could happen in the fog? You could trip and hurt yourself. You could fall in a hole. Foggy Jack might get you. Of course, Foggy Jack doesn't really exist, but you can never be too careful. Take it from me, Jack Worthing. Stay inside until dawn and greet the bright new day. You'll be glad you did. Everyone is talking about the shocking thing that happened yesterday. You know what I'm talking about. I have it on good authority that it was not at all what you might have thought it was. And in any event, the responsible parties are taking steps to make sure it never happens again. In the meantime, keep calm and carry on. And don't forget to take your joy. And the weather report is rain, rain, go away, come back again some other day. Remember, gentlemen, while rainwater goes down smooth in a whiskey, it does not contain joy. So, if you like to collect rainwater for tempering your constitutional, please remember to adjust your dose accordingly. And the weather is delightfully sunny, inside and out. Who doesn't love an English spring? I expect to see nothing but smiles out there. In fact, anything but smiles out there is strictly forbidden. Also, extremely unlikely, unless someone's happy face falls off. Can you imagine that? Better make sure it's not you. In case you might have heard a loud explosion coming from the general direction of the Victory Memorial Camp, don't worry, it wasn't someone blowing themselves up on the minefield. It was merely the members of the Home Army testing their ordnance. Mortar shells apparently don't last forever, and there's nothing more frustrating than dropping a shell on the enemy and it turning out to be a dud. So they must regularly test their supplies. That's all it was. No fatalities at all, and no worries. You may have noticed one of our favorite shops boarded up. There's no need to worry. We're told the proprietor, you know who I'm talking about, is renovating, and he doesn't want anyone to see it until it's done. At least that's what he says. I suspect he may simply have gone on holidays and doesn't want us to know. So if you notice a certain person comes back to work looking remarkably well rested, we'll know the truth, won't we? Our local football team has done it again. A thrilling victory over some tough rivals. You've never seen such exciting footwork, and they really use their heads. Of course, it's nothing less than we expect from our finest. If you see them, do buy them a pint for me. I'm sorry to say tomorrow's cricket match has been postponed due to uncertain weather. You can't very well play cricket in a typhoon, so we'll let you know the revised schedule as soon as we receive the details. In Hamlin, our favourite butcher shop has a very special today. Is it pork chops? Is it pepperoni? Is it filet mignon? Is it roast chicken? Or is it just several cases of fresh, delicious V-meat? Now that I've got your mouth watering, well, I'm not going to tell you what it is. You'll have to go visit yourself. And do give your favourite butcher my regards. No one slices like he does. There has been some confusion about the pass required to enter the city centre of Wellington Wells. To obtain your pass, you simply need to present yourself in person with a recent photograph and a typed explanation of your purpose at the Department of Public Order. It's simple, isn't it? That's all you have to do. The department is located at 5 Wapping Road, near the corner of Bath Street, in the centre of Wellington Wells. I hope that clarifies everything. There has been some excitement at the Victory Memorial Camp. an unauthorized person was intercepted attempting to plant tulips around the chain link fence. Fortunately, she set off all the alarms and was quickly apprehended. Now, imagine how alarming it would have been if she'd not been caught. Kaboom! Yes. Now, the leadership of the Home Army hastens to remind the public that the Victory Camp and the surrounding relics of our heroic resistance have been preserved in its immediate post-victory state. That means unmarked minefields and unexploded ordnance every which way. She could have got herself blown up. So don't be a tourist fatality. No one except members of the Home Army in good standing has any purpose in the memorial camp. And if you want to plant flowers, how about planting them in town where we can all see them? Some viewers have asked me, how can I find out more about the resistance and the victory? Now, I always tell them, why on earth would you want to know more about the war years? Their ancient history, and our lives are so much better now. But, due to popular demand, we now have a book with all the answers. It's called The Story of Our Victory. And it's written by me, Jack Worthing. It's a lovely little book with cheery illustrations and quotations from all your favorite wartime heroes. And it tells you absolutely everything you should ever want to know about the war and our glorious victory. If it's not in the book, you don't need to know it. Some viewers have asked, how do I join the brave soldiers of the Home Army? Now, I've asked the Home Army leadership to respond, and they would like you to know that the Home Army has a full complement of highly trained warriors ready to repel any future invasion by our enemies, or even our friends. So there's no need to join anything. You can just be a patriot by smiling at everyone you meet. Now, go about your day and enjoy our lovely English weather, whatever it is. Welcome to News Hour. All sorts of amazing things have been going on in Wellington Wells. I'm sure you must be as excited as I am to know about them. You may be surprised to know that a few silly people are still throwing out perfectly good meat scraps. Now, it's never a good idea to throw out food, especially meat. If you have a scrap of meat you don't want to eat or that's gone slightly off, then run it right down to your neighborhood butcher. They'll know what to do with it, and they'll be happy to buy it from you or exchange it for sausage or even V-meat. Yes, you'll be doing yourself a favor and you'll be doing your patriotic Wellington Wells duty as well. And remember, my fellow Wellsians, V-meat may smell off on rainy days, but it's always nutritious, and it never actually goes bad. I'm happy to report that many homeowners are taking steps to ensure the security of their castles. I mean homes. For an Englishman's home is his castle, isn't it? And don't let anyone tell you any different. Yes, even more homes are being outfitted with the latest state-of-the-art home alarm systems. This is due to the recent outbreak of being sensible. You can never be too careful these days, eh? Anyway, it's good to know that people are safe in their own homes. And if you notice any suspicious characters skulking round your neighborhood, be sure to lock all your doors and bar all your windows, and inform a local policeman if you can find one. I'm happy to report the graduation of a new class of policemen. And don't be surprised if you look up and see a new face under those blue custodian helmets. There'll be quite a bit more of them around, so honest, sensible citizens should feel even safer on our streets. Some of you may be wondering why so many shops are closed. There's nothing to worry about at all. Many shopkeepers are taking advantage of the lull in purchases to make much-needed repairs to their establishments. Or they are simply going on holiday. Don't be afraid to use this opportunity to try a new place. Many shopkeepers are still open for business and would love to see your smiling face. Yes, and variety is the spice of life. You may be wondering about the yellow powder currently coating our streets. Is it a particularly imaginative attempt at making our city even more colorful? Shall we expect blue powder and red powder in the next few days? Will there be rainbow-colored dust devils? Well, no one can make predictions, especially about the future. But I can assure you there's nothing to worry about. The dust clouds have now dispersed. There should be no more powder falls. I will suggest, though, that for the next few days, if you eat any wild plants, you ought to wash them very carefully. If your water's working, or at least sponge them off until you can see no more powder on their leaves. It's also a very good idea to stick to piped water and any sealed supplies that you may have, at least until the sulfur powder has washed away into the sewer system. Again, nothing to be concerned about, but do be careful to take a few precautions and keep tuned to good old Jack Worthing, that's me, for further updates. Ah, yes. I'm happy to inform you that the shipment of tainted vegetables has been completely removed from our streets. If you hadn't heard, there had been an unfortunate outbreak of botulism in the vegetables at your local greengrocer. But there's no need to worry. You won't find a single vegetable for sale in Wellington Wells. Yes, what about my stew, you may ask? Well, not to worry. The authorities are looking into providing vegetables from new sources, and I should have more about that for you in the upcoming days. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for more timely, informative, and cheery news of Wellington Wells. This is Jack Worthing saying goodbye, and on with your day. See you soon. Every now and then, you hear someone talk about downers. What's a downer? Well, a downer is someone who simply isn't taking their joy. This person endangers the mental health of everyone around by bringing them down. He or she may try to draw you into a conversation about long-ago events, or he may try to convince you that his life is not happy, or even that your life is not happy. Don't be fooled. The moment you realize you're talking to a downer, you should stop listening to him right away. He needs help, and listening to him won't help anyone. Try this easy test. Are you having a conversation that's bringing you down? Then one of the people who's talking to you is a downer. Or if none of them is a downer, and they all seem as happy as can be, well, then you may be the downer. In that case, don't worry. Immediately excuse yourself and take your joy right away, and you'll be right as rain in no time. You can never be too careful. Well, look at you. What are you doing? Yes, that's right. I'm talking to you. What on earth do you think you're doing? Are you where you should be? Are you doing what you should be doing? Of course you are. Let's face it, there's nowhere we'd rather be and nothing we'd rather be doing than living our lives here and now in Wellington Wells, eh? We're all so fortunate to be proud Englishmen and women, because no matter what we've been through, we're all alive and happy, and so many others are not. I just want you to meditate on that essential fact of our existence. This is Uncle Jack saying, it's easy to smile when you've so much to be thankful for, but just because it's easy, it doesn't mean that it's not true. What do you do if you're with a downer? Well, if it's you, then just excuse yourself and take your joy right away. You'll be as right as rain in no time. But what if it's not you? Well, the first thing to do is ask the downer, have you had enough joy today? Most sensible people will realize they've forgotten their morning joy. After all, forgetfulness can happen to any of us. In fact, it's a sign you're taking your joy. So remind them and they'll take their joy right away and, yes, problem solved. But what if the person won't take his joy? Well then, you need to step up and do your patriotic duty to your fellow citizen of Wellington Wells. If you can see a policeman or a doctor, simply notify them that there's a downer in the area, and yes, they'll take care of the rest. After all, it's their job. But if there are no authorities, you may need to take action yourself. Call your fellow citizens and let them know they've got a downer in their midst. They'll help you chase and subdue the downer and make sure he takes his joy. Once he's recovered his senses, well, you can let him go on his way. And if for any reason he fails to recover, Don't feel bad. Sad feelings are contagious, and one bad apple can spoil the lot. Go on your way and have a lovely day. And now, it's time for our daily recreational activity, the show where you're the star. Come on, everybody. It's time for everyone to gather in front of the telly. And if you're inside, be sure to go and find a telly outside. This game is much more fun to play in a crowd. Today, we're going to be playing Simon Says. Are you ready to play? Okay, begin. I didn't say Simon Says. I got you already. Now, you all know the rules, don't you? I'm going to tell you to do something. But if I don't say Simon Says, you don't do it. And if I do say Simon Says, you do it. Okay? Ready? Is everybody ready? You there. Are you ready? Oh, come on, don't be shy. You know you want to. Of course you do. There's a good lad. Everybody give him a hand. No, wait a minute. I didn't say Simon Says. Okay. Simon Says, begin. All right. Simon Says, put your hands on your head. Simon Says, touch your feet. Simon Says, never mind. Clap your hands. Yes, you there. You're out. Yeah, and you too. You're out. Go on. Out you go. Good. I didn't say Simon Says, but you got out, so yes, you're out. You have to be very careful. All right. Simon Says, lift your right knee. Simon Says, lift your left knee. Lift both your knees. And if you're on the floor, well, you didn't wait for Simon, did you? Did you know that Simon Says was invented in 1266 when Simon de Montfort had control of King Henry III? And no matter what King Henry ordered, it didn't matter until Simon Says. Clap your hands. I did say Simon Says. You see, I just said it as part of another sentence. So, yes, you and you're out. Simon Says you're out. Well, you're all doing brilliantly. Isn't this fun, eh? I think it's great fun. Simon Says, have fun. Brilliant. Simon Says, flap your arms. Simon Says, flap them again. And again. No! If you flap them a third time, you're out. Simon Says, banana bread. Oh my God, I don't even know why I said that. I don't even know what it means. Simon Says, jump. Simon Says, skip in place. Simon Says, patty cake. Simon Says, jump again. Simon Says, kick. Clap. Simon Says, flap. Clap. Flap. Simon Says, jump. Simon Says, spin. Simon Says, put your hands on your hips. Simon Says, put your head on your knees. Simon Says, put your head on your hands. Put your hands on your hips. Simon Says, jump. No, I didn't say Simon Says. So you there, listen carefully. I didn't say Simon Says. You must listen to me very carefully or you'll be out. Please extinguish all cigarettes. I'm just kidding. Who has cigarettes anymore? And if you do, Simon Says, give me one. Simon Says, scratch your head. Simon Says, shout. Wow, very good. That was brilliant. Run in circles. I didn't say Simon Says. Simon Says, ignore my next command. Simon Says, fall on the ground. Simon Says, don't jump. Jump. Don't jump. Simon Says, jump. Sing Rule Britannia. You all have very lovely singing voices, but I didn't say Simon Says. Simon Says, fall down. Get up. Simon Says, roll over. Simon Says, stand up. Yes, brilliant. That was terrific. It was really very, very good. And I hope all of you had a fantastic time. I trust you all brought cake because I did promise cake and I hate to be a liar. Well, the game is over. Simon Says, spin. Simon Says, now the game is over. Simon says, I hope you enjoyed yourselves. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time for another rousing daily recreational activity. Thank you all for playing. I'll see you soon. And now, it's time for our daily recreational activity, the show where you're the star. Come on, everyone. It's time for everyone to get out of the street and find a telly to watch. This game is so much more fun with all of your friends and fellow citizens. Today is a very special episode of our favorite Simon Says. Have you ever wondered if you're ready in case the Germans ever came back? Would you know how to defend yourself against the marauding Bosch? Are you ready? All right. Now let's play Simon Says. Ha! I didn't say Simon Says. You all know the rules, don't you? I'm going to tell you to do something, but if I don't say Simon Says, you don't do it. If I do say Simon Says, yes, you do it. All right. Is everybody ready? You there. Are you ready? Oh, you are. Yes, that's the Wellington Wells spirit. Everybody give him a hand. Good. No. I didn't say Simon Says. All right then. Now what I want everyone to get themselves a weapon. Cricket, bat, or a crowbar, anything like that. And if all you have is a banana, well, that's fine. Actually, if you do have a banana, just drop it here at the station and I'll swap you for it for a slightly used mallet. Good. Simon says, raise your weapon. Simon says, swing right. Simon says, swing left. Simon says, swing right. Ha-ha, yes. I can see I already got a few people out there. If you swung left, then you're out. The Germans got you. Fall to the ground, eviscerated. I'm just joking. You can never be too careful. All right then. Simon says, swing left. Simon says, swing right. Simon says, lunge. Simon says, parry. Lunge. Ah! Yes, you. You're out. Remember, the lunge is your finishing blow. Save it for when your enemy's on his back foot, no matter what Simon says. Did you lunge? You were supposed to. I did say Simon Says, you see. I just said it in bits. Yes, so you and you're out. Simon says, you're out. Very good. You're all beautiful. Yes. Go on, give it to me. Simon says, give it to me. Yes, very good. Simon says, take a step forward. Simon says, take a step back. Simon says, swing right. Simon says, swing left. Simon says, finishing blow. Step back. Simon says, shout. Yes. Simon says, raise your weapon. Simon says, have fun. You're all doing brilliantly. Very good. Simon says, jump. Simon says, parry. Simon says, dodge. Simon says, lunge. Simon says, victory meat is wonderful. Captain says, swing left. Ha-ha. I didn't say Simon Says. Simon says, don't do the next thing I say. Simon says, jump. Oh, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Simon says, run in circles. Simon says, stay in place. Simon says, lunge. Lovely. Simon says, sing Rule Britannia. Rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Britons never, never, never shall be slaves. Good. Simon says, swing right. Simon says, swing left. Simon says, swing right. Ah! You there. Simon says, run along. Go on. All right. Simon says, fall down. Simon says, get up. Simon says, roll over. Simon says, stand up. Brilliant. Simon says, do everything I do, I shouted, even if I don't say Simon Says. Swing right, swing left, swing low, swing chariot. Lunge, lunge, again, step forward. Right, left, right, lunge, yes, finish him, fatality. Oh, yes, that was terrific. Very, very good. I hope you all had a fantastic time. Oh, dear. I trust you all brought cake because I did, and I did promise cake, and I hate to be a liar. Well, I'm afraid the game is over. Simon says spin. Simon says Now the game is over. And Simon says, I hope you all enjoyed yourself immensely. I certainly did. We've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time for another rousing daily recreational activity. Thank you all for playing. Hello. Welcome to today's edition of That Tastes Amazing. What is it? This is the show where we help you expand your nutritional horizons. You know, you can eat a lot more things than you've ever dreamt of. And I'm here to show you what. Now, today we're going to talk about the wonderful world of flour extenders and bread substitutes. Of course, a lot of you are already using flour substitutes, and bread doesn't have to be made of wheat flour. Ground barley, for example, is scrumptious. And why wouldn't it be? Barley is the key ingredient in beer. Ha ha ha! Now I've got your attention, haven't I? Making beer is like making tea. You pour hot water over partly sprouted barley grains. But after all this beer tea, it's called wort, by the way, after it's been poured off to ferment into beer, well, there are bags and bags full of used barley. Now, can you believe that people used to feed spent mash to cows? What a waste! I mean, of course, it's not as yummy as it used to be, but there are still a few calories left. All you need to do is grind the used barley into flour in the kind of hand mill that you used to use for coffee beans. Now, if you've already sold your hand mill, barley can be pounded into flour with an ordinary mortar. Now, of course, that'll use and require a lot more elbow grease, like this, but it'll really build up those muscles. Now, once you've got your barley flour, you just jolly well mix it in with wheat flour. If you can get it, that is. See, flour provides the sticky gluten that holds bread together. So the more flour you can mix in, the better. Ideally, proportions are 1 cup of barley to 1 cup of flour. However, if you really like the taste of barley, you can always mix in 2 cups to 1 cup of flour. It'll have a more crumbly, more cake-like consistency. I love a crumble cake, don't you? You could always eat it in a bowl with a spoon. After all, it's going to look the same when it comes out the other end, isn't it? Well, so much for used barley. Now, if you can still get your hands on a potato flour is another excellent extender for your flour supplies. Very important. You must slice your potatoes as thin as possible, as if you're making crisps. In fact, if you've got oil to fry them in, you can just skip making flour and go right to making crisps. Machine oil will do just as well as fat or grease. But if bread is what you're about, then slice your potato slices until you can break them with your hand. If your oven works, you can dry them in the oven, but our fireplace is just as good. Just make sure you dry them and don't actually cook them. The key is that you don't want a lot of water in your potato flour. Just move them a little bit away from the fire. Now, I'm not actually going to slice this potato because the drying process takes several hours and, well, we haven't got all day, have we? Oh, yes. I've got plans for you later, Mr. Potato. You've got a date with a hot pot full of boiling oil. Some people seem to think that sawdust is a good flour extender. Well, they're certainly using their English imaginations, aren't they? We've always been good at coming up with clever solutions to just about any problem, eh? It's certainly easy to get sawdust. You just saw some wood. And yes, sawdust will indeed fill you up. It's very slow to digest, which makes for a full tummy all day long. Just make sure it's powdery and not too rough, or it'll irritate your stomach. Do bear in mind that sawdust has surprisingly little nutritional value. Man cannot live on sawdust alone. If you're looking for a better use of sawdust, it's handy to use as a mulch in your garden. It really helps aerate your soil. And if you have a typical Hamlin clay under your house, a bit of sawdust is just the thing to mix in to lighten up that soil. And the same goes for wheat chaff. Fills the tummy, but after a while you'll need to eat something nutritious. Best to dig it into your victory garden where it'll do your vegetables a world of good. Listen to me, this isn't my gardening show, is it? Let's get back to flour extenders. you're harvesting wild seeds, they won't contain any joy. And neither will potatoes unless you've watered them yourself from water out of the tap. And especially sawdust and chaff, they don't have any joy at all. So remember to adjust your dose accordingly. And bear in mind, if sawdust or chaff is all you have, just up your dose of joy a little. They'll fill your tummy and you won't be at all upset that you're a little bit hungry. You might even forget that you haven't eaten at all. But just get back to real food as soon as you can, and you'll be right as rain. Oh, I'm afraid I've come to the end of our time. This is Uncle Jack wishing you an amazing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tune in next time when we explore what to do with meat that's gone a bit off. See you soon. Ah, hello. Welcome to today's edition of That Tastes Amazing. What is it? This is the show where we help you expand your nutritional horizons. You know, you can eat a lot more things than you've ever dreamt of. And I'm here to show you what. Now today, we're going to talk about the wonderful world of edible weeds. You might think the orach plant is just a roadside weed, but our friend Atriplex patula bears thousands of seeds which you can gather in the autumn, and they'll keep all year long, if you haven't already snaffled them up. Yummy! Now grind them as you would any other kind of cornmeal, and you can blend them into your flour supply. You can also use them to thicken your soup. And don't waste the rest of the plant. You can eat the young leaves in salads, and you can cook up the old leaves like spinach. Goosefoot salad and orach bread. What a filling meal. And it's all free. Yes. That is a nettle. Now, who wants to eat a nettle, really? Well, gorillas, for one. They love nettles. They eat thistles and nettles every chance they get. But I don't suppose you're a gorilla. And if you are, well, you're hiding it very well, and bravo for you. Of course, artichokes are basically monstrously large thistles. But you already know about artichokes. This isn't an artichoke. It's not even a thistle. It's a nettle. Urtica dioica is a tall plant with a thick root we call a rhizome. And the whole plant is just packed with vitamins. In fact, it's quite medicinal. You can use it to treat sore muscles, eczema, arthritis, gout, and anemia. Though I doubt any of you have the gout, eh? That's the one thing about our present thrifty lifestyle has spared us, eh? Now, be careful, because this is called a stinging nettle for a reason. It's got lots of sharp, stinging, tiny hairs. And each of these tiny hairs is hollow and contains a drop of formic acid. That's what ants bite you with. Now, when the hair pierces your skin, it injects the acid. You'll have an annoying, burning sensation that can last for minutes or even days, and you won't have got it from anything fun, will you? No. So, best thing to do is to wear gloves. And if you do get stung, try rubbing the sting with the root of the plant. It might make the itch go away, and in any event, it'll make you look and feel rather clever. Then you're going to do one of two things once you've harvested it. You can cook it, or you can dry it. You probably don't like eating your vegetables dry, unless you're a cow, in which case you're hiding it very well. Bravo, you. And do let me know where you live so I can eat you up. Now, what you ought to do is cook it as you would cook spinach. In fact, it tastes a great deal like spinach. And did I mention that it's packed with vitamins? Yes, I did. Well, it is. You can also put it in soups and stews. The best leaves are the young, light green ones, but beggars can't be choosers. You can even make it into tea. But everyone knows you can eat weeds, and who hasn't eaten a yummy dandelion salad? Clover has a lovely lemony taste. You can eat it raw, but like all proper English food, it's much better if you boil it for at least half an hour. Chicory is best known as tea, but you can eat the whole plant. The young leaves you can eat raw, and the flowers make a great snack. And if you put the roots in a stew, it'll add flavor, bulk, vitamins, and calories. Sheep sorrel is a common weed like acid soil, like your common English bog. Don't eat too much of it, it's full of oxalates. But the leaves have a very nice tart flavor. Just remember, all of these plants are edible, especially if you boil them. And And if you're not sure about a plant, just put it in a soup. A little of the wrong will almost never kill you, as long as you mix it in with lots of good stuff. Just eat a little at first, and if it doesn't upset your stomach, eat a little bit more the next time. Soon you'll be chowing down like a cow. But you're not a cow, or I'm coming to your house for dinner. I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. This is Uncle Jack wishing you an amazing breakfast, lunch, and dinner. Tune in next time when we explore the fabulous world of edible insects. Did you know you can eat maggots? They're nutritious and scrumptious. Hello. Welcome to today's edition of That Tastes Amazing. What is it? This is the show where we help you expand your nutritional horizons. You can eat a lot more things than you've ever dreamt of. Did you know you can eat lichens? Now, I'm going to show you 3 kinds of lichens that you can fill up on. This is Piñata perlatum, your basic grey-green lichen. For some reason, it's also called black stone flower. In India, it's called kalpasi. It grows on rocks and even stone houses all over Hamlin. Imagine being able to scrape a salad off the side of your own house. Wouldn't that make your life so much easier and cleverer? This is called reindeer lichen, or Cladonia rangiferina. As you might have guessed, it's very important food for reindeer, yes. However, we don't have any reindeer here in England, and we haven't had any since the last ice age, so I think they won't mind if you eat it. The best way to eat it is by drying it and then crushing it, then soaking it in hot water until it becomes soft. You can fry it up if you've got any grease or lard, in which case, lucky you. It's a bit acid, so it may give you a bit of a tummy ache, but that's miles better than starving, isn't it? And you can, if you can manage to use it as a green in a Victory meat sandwich, then, well, I think you'll be as right as rain. Our friend Cladonia has all sorts of medicinal values for keeping you regular to a mild antiseptic quality. You can even use it to flavour your aquavit if you've got any left. Here's another lichen that people like to call moss. It's called Iceland moss, and guess where it's really common? Yes, Hamlin, that's where. What did you think I was going to say? Now, I've had some of this, and let me tell you, it is scrumptious. Well, all right. Perhaps it's not quite scrumptious, but it's quite filling if you're hungry. In fact, I quite liken it. Oh dear, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time, and I hope you've enjoyed this edition of That Tastes Amazing. What is it? Tune in next time when we talk about rat meat. Now, everyone knows about the legs, but did you know you can turn the eyes, feet, and tail into a perfectly good soup stock? Seriously, don't be afraid to experiment with new foods. It's part of the adventure of living in these times. This is Jack Worthing telling you to keep that larder full and save the canned foods for a rainy day. I'll see you soon. And now it's time for Famous Britons, the show in which Jack Worthing, that's me, interviews some of our more celebrated countrymen from history. Now today we have in our studio Her Majesty Queen Mary, fondly known to history as Bloody Mary for massacring Protestants and marrying a Spaniard. And don't confuse me with Mary Queen of Scots either. I'll be very cross. No, of course not, Your Majesty. But she was an idiot. And your sister Elizabeth had her beheaded, didn't she? Oh, Jack, that vixen Elizabeth. Do you know, I should have had her head cut off. But I didn't, because I'm a kind and merciful person. By the way, Jack, are you Catholic? Actually, I'm Anglican, like most people here. Oh dear. I think we better put you down for a beheading. After the interview, perhaps? You could convert? That sounds much more jolly. Oh dear. You sound disappointed. Well, Jack, you've no idea how a good beheading can cheer one up. Well, I don't know about that. Have you tried joy? Joy? What's that? Well, it's this marvellous pill that makes you forget all the bad things and feel wonderful about everything else. Jack, what rubbish. What kind of queen is happy all the time? Do you know, the few times I was happy, I barely cut anyone's head off at all. Well, surely there's more to life than just beheading people. Well, we did try beheading goats for a while, but, well, it wasn't quite the same, was it? Well, what about fun and family and love? I am married to King Philip of Spain. Ah, well, you're in a bit of a jam then, aren't you? Well, fortunately, I'm dead. Well, that is one way to solve one's problems, isn't it? Jack's been lovely chatting, but I really must be off. Someone's saying my name 3 times into a mirror. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Her Majesty Queen Mary. If only she'd had joy, she might not have beheaded quite so many people. Now ask your doctor if joy is right for you. Of course it is. Next week on Famous Britons, I'll be interviewing St. Thomas a Becket. I hear he's turbulent. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in later for more Uncle Jack. And now it's time for Famous Britons, the show in which Jack Worthing, that's me, interviews some of our most celebrated countrymen. Today, we have in our studio His Majesty King George III. Your Majesty, how are you feeling today? Mad, really? Well, is it us who's mad, or is it the entire world? Oh, no, Jack, no, it's me. Absolutely me. Do you know, in fact, it's got right, some of my subjects affectionately refer to me as Mad King George. Still, you accomplished quite a bit in your reign, didn't you? Yes, I have, Jack, and I'm glad to talk about some of the more serious things of my reign. I grew smashing carrots. Really did. In fact, I was known as Farmer George. But those damned rabbits, Jack, always eating my carrots. You beat the French. And you know, in those days, they weren't even always orange. No. They were mostly sort of red and white and sometimes beige. The French? No, Jack. The carrots. Do try to keep up, man. But the French, yes, we did beat them twice. Sadly. And, well, you're famous for giving the Americans their liberty, eh? Oh, Jack. Those pesky Americans. Any idiot can grow vegetables in the New World. You just chop down a tree and there's your farm. I mean, try doing that in the plot of land that's been found for 2,000 years. Ha! Good luck to you, man. But Jack, the damned rabbits were always eating my lettuce. Well, you do sound a little upset. But I'm mad. I'm absolutely mad. Mad King George, barking. Have you tried joy? Joy? What's that? Well, it's this marvelous pill that makes you forget everything and think of all the wonderful things in life. Well, I wish I'd had some of that. I might not have gone quite so mad. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. His Majesty King George III. If only he'd had joy, he might not have gone mad at all. Ask your doctor if joy is right for you. Of course it's right for you. Next week on Famous Britons, I'll be interviewing King Arthur. Do you know he's planning a comeback? Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in later for more Uncle Jack. And now it's time for Funny Old Customs, the show in which Jack Worthing, that's me, illuminates our jolly island's ancient customs. Today, we're going to talk about human sacrifice. Yes, many of our forebears enjoyed a human sacrifice or two, and I'm not just talking about watching a good hanging, like we did during the... Never mind, sometimes I don't even know what I'm talking about. Well, the most famous British sacrifices were the ancient Celts. According to Julius Caesar, their druids liked to put criminals and prisoners of war into giant wicker men and then set them on fire. Wow, what a sight that must have been. And if you don't think we can trust the Romans, then how about the bog bodies? Yes, we found beautifully preserved bodies in peat marshes, and some of them show evidence of having been strangled, drowned, and stabbed to death. That's how you propitiate a god, eh? Makes you wonder if anybody's buried under Stonehenge, eh? And if they are, who's under our own little henge, the wedding party stones? Maybe someone should check. Of course, all this was before we Anglo-Saxons became an island race. Back then, we were pagans and worshipped dark gods. The darkest and most important of the gods was Wotan, whereas the Vikings called him Odin. He was a war god, perhaps he still is a war god. And the Vikings would sacrifice 99 men and women in a great blot to make sure he stayed happy. That's a long way from Abraham and Isaac, isn't it? Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Maybe someday we'll talk about the ancient Aztecs of Mexico, who liked to cut a man's heart out while it was still beating. Fortunately, no one does it anymore, as far as I know. Well, you never know what goes on in the Garden District, do you? At least, I hope you don't. Well, remember me in your prayers, whoever it is you're praying to. And tune in again soon for more Uncle Jack. And now it's time for Funny English Customs, the show in which Jack Worthing, that's me, illuminates our jolly island's ancient customs. Now, since the 1st of May is coming soon, let's talk about the ancient tradition of the Maypole. Some people claim the Maypole was a naughty Roman ritual about, well, we're all grown-ups here, aren't we? But we Brits, well, we've been dancing around the Maypole for as long as we've been burning virgins in giant wicker men, haven't we? But we don't really do that anymore, do we? Apparently, though, the custom of men and women wrapping ribbons around the Maypole by dancing only dates to Victorian times. It makes sense, doesn't it? Before that, really long ribbons were much too expensive, yes. A lot of ancient customs are really Victorian. For example, the idea that each Scottish clan has its own tartan pattern. Do you know who made that up? The novelist Walter Scott. Wally. Of course, you're liable to work up quite a burning thirst dancing round a Maypole, aren't you? What's the perfect drink to put out those fires? Why, Summerisle ale, of course. And the head brewer, Lord Summerisle, as they call him, has brewed up a very special medieval ale to sell only in the first week of May. It's called a gruit. Instead of hops, it's seasoned with marsh rosemary, bog myrtle, and yarrow. Take it from me, Jack Worthing, it's got a delightful twang of peach. You can't get peaches anymore, can you? May Day gruit from Summerisle ale quenches your burning thirst. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again soon for more Uncle Jack. Welcome to Strange Foreign Customs, the show where Jack Worthing, that's me, tells you all about the bizarre and ridiculous things people do in other countries. Let's start with Thorobloat. It's an Icelandic festival where you eat disgusting food. Yes, pressed pickled ram testicles, seal flippers, whale blubber, and my favorite, fermented shark. You must be wondering, how do you go around preparing that? Well, you see, you let it rot in the sand for a few months until it's not poisonous anymore, mostly, and then it smells like pneumonia. And then you hang it up to dry until it's chewy. Now, I don't care how starving I am. I'm not going to eat rotten shark, thank you very much. Of course, everyone knows Santa brings presents. But what happens to the men and women who've been naughty? Coal in their socks, right? Actually, I'd love some coal in a cold night. But in Czechoslovakia, they get a visit from the terrifying Krampus. He carts off evil people to be eaten. Do I have your attention now? Now, I know you've all been good this year, and if you haven't, well, I don't want to hear about it. But wouldn't it be fun to dress up as a Krampus and scare wicked people? Now, when I was traveling in Mexico back in, well, I can't remember when, but I found the most enchanting strange custom. It's called a piñata. And we have one right here. Here he is. It's a large, colourful, papier-mâché sculpture, you see, and it's filled with sweets. And you're supposed to smash it until all the sweets come out, and it turns out the custom isn't Mexican at all. It's Spanish, and originally the sculptures are made of clay pots. Wouldn't that be fun? Smashing a clay pot full of treats? You know, it's sort of the reverse of what you do with downers. Smash them until you can get the joy into them. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again soon for more Uncle Jack. And welcome to today's edition of Well, 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 the show where we talk about how to be your physical best. Now, we all know what to do about the blahs, don't we? If you're feeling a little bit blue, here's an easy fix. Pop another joy. You can't overdose on happiness. Being in Wellington Wells means never having to feel sorry for yourself. But there are some ailments of the body, and though you might feel perfectly happy, you might be having trouble keeping your food down. And you might be having trouble keeping your food in. There's a surprisingly nasty little disease called cholera. Yes, its main symptoms are vomiting and diarrhea. You wind up doing so much of both that, in the end, you've nothing to throw up except clear liquid and nothing to come out the other end except a sort of rice water. Now, I'm afraid I'm going to show you a rather ghastly photograph, but it's all in a good cause. I hope that's not what you're seeing in the pot. But if you are, then someone in your house may have cholera. Now, cholera is a bit dangerous, but it has a very simple treatment. In the past, you see, we all used to take all sorts of pills for it. But it turns out that the most important thing is to drink lots and lots of water. Yes, you can lose 10 to 20 quarts of fluid a day from cholera. In fact, people with cholera can wind up with wrinkled hands like they spent too long in the tub. The cure for that is easy. Drink like a fish. Don't be afraid to drink 10 to 20 quarts of water per day. Ideally, of course, you'll mix half a teaspoon of salt, 6 teaspoons of sugar, and a little bit of mashed banana in each quart of water. But if you don't have sugar or banana, and who does, the salt's important too. And here's where you may need a bit of help. If you're drinking that much water, you don't need to take any additional joy pills, and you may find yourself forgetting a thing or two. Now, if there are other people in your household, please make sure that they know not to let you take any more joy pills for a while, and to make sure you keep drinking lots and lots of water. Now, how do you ensure that you don't get cholera? Well, be sure to only drink pure water. Now, there's absolutely no truth to any rumour that the water in Wellington Wells is contaminated by bacteria. However, you can never be too careful. So, if you can, if anyone on your street is having a lot of tummy trouble, you should boil all water, especially if it's been exceptionally rainy. I mean, not your ordinary wonderful English rain, but severe thunderstorms. If your gas isn't working, just filtering your water through a cloth is quite helpful in reducing the bacteria in the water. Why don't you just go down the pub? The beer is definitely safe to drink. And if you're caring for someone with a lot of tummy trouble, be sure to wash your hands lots. And if you can, get some bleach. Be sure to bleach the bed sheets. It's a very good idea. And if you can't, well, then hanging them out on a sunny day until they're quite warm and dry will work wonders, because nothing disinfects like sunlight. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask a doctor. You know doctors, they're always looking out for you. And remember, no matter what you do, make sure you're taking enough joy. There's no excuse anymore for feeling bad. You don't have to. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time when we'll hear the good news about leprosy. It's slow, and it's not at all true that your limbs just fall off. So don't worry if you're losing sensation in your extremities. You'll probably die of something else first. This is Dr. Jack Worthing saying, stay well, 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 and don't forget to take your drug. Goodbye. And welcome to today's edition of Well, 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 the show where we talk about how to be your physical best. Now, we all know how to be our mental best, don't we? If you're feeling a bit listless and down, there's a simple and easy answer. Pop a joy. You can't be too happy now, can you? Being a citizen of Wellington Wells means never having to feel sorry for yourself. But this is the show where we talk about being your physical best. If you're feeling a bit sick, it's nice to be happy, but you still don't want to drop dead even if you're smiling all the way, do you? Well, actually, it's not a bad way to go, I suppose. But let's talk about coughing. England is a drafty, wet country, and we all get colds from time to time. When you think about it, jams love the wet, and they stay fresh in the cold. So, if you're coughing from time to time, well, there's nothing to worry about, and there's nothing to do about it either. Now, some people get very worried if they're coughing up blood. And indeed, yes, that might be a sign of something nasty like cancer or pulmonary embolism, things that we don't have any way to treat anymore. Of course, it could just be a sign of bronchitis. If you've had a nasty cough for a while and you're just coughing and coughing and coughing and wheezing, then you probably do have bronchitis. So see if you can get your hands on some old cough drops, or if you haven't any left, drink plenty of tea, rest as much as you can, and try not to cough, and it'll probably eventually go away. But coughing up blood is, like it or not, also a traditional sign of tuberculosis. Yes, tuberculosis is a nasty, infectious disease that we just about eliminated from England before the war. Guess who brought it back to us? I won't tell you, but they weren't mermen, and they weren't called Herman, and they didn't come to preach a sermon. Yes, well, some of them are called Herman. Yes, you know what I'm talking about. How do you know if it is tuberculosis? Well, another symptom is night sweats. If your sheets are soaking wet in the morning, well, then you've had night sweats. And we know you're not having night sweats from worrying, are you? Not if you're taking your joy. Fever is another symptom. But by itself, it could be just a bad cold. But with night sweats and coughing up blood, well, you might start to wonder. Of course, the most famous sign of tuberculosis is losing weight. Victims of tuberculosis waste away. That's why it's called consumption. That's why it used to be called consumption. Now, if you're not getting enough to eat, of course, you're losing weight, so don't worry. But if you are lucky enough to be getting enough to eat, and you're still losing a lot of weight, and you're coughing up blood, well, then you very well have tuberculosis. What can you do if you have tuberculosis? Well, the most important thing you can do is to make sure that no one else gets it. Don't cough at anyone, don't spit on the street, and wash your hands often with soap. Get yourself to a doctor as soon as you can, and they'll be sure to get you to a place where you can be taken care of properly and that you won't infect anyone else. What if you suspect someone close to you has tuberculosis? Be sure to tell the nearest doctor. They'll know how to be sure if your husband or wife or friend has it and what to do about it. Don't keep it a secret, or you might catch it too. Be very careful with any handkerchiefs or clothes or sheets that someone might have coughed blood on. They should be washed thoroughly with soap and bleach if you can get it, and they should be hung out to dry at least until a warm, sunny day dries them out, because nothing disinfects like sunlight. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask a doctor. You know doctors, they're always looking out for you. And remember, be your own doctor. No matter what you do, be sure you're taking enough joy. There's no more excuses for feeling bad. You don't have to. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow when we'll see if there's any truth to the rumors about leprosy. I'll tell you a secret. They're all false. This is Dr. Jack Worthing, and this is my prescription. Get plenty of sleep and exercise, and you'll be well. Goodbye. Welcome to today's edition of Well, the show where we talk about how to be your physical best. Now, some of you dear listeners have been writing in about some sort of plague that's supposed to be going around Wellington Wells. Now, first of all, don't be ridiculous. If there were a plague, wouldn't you expect to notice dead bodies in the streets strewn here and there? But you don't notice them, do you? But I want to address some of the wilder claims people have been writing to me about. For example, this chap, Constable Bill Blake of Trim Street, St. George's Home. And he writes that some of the wastrels have become quite incoherent and belligerent. And, well, he chalks it up to plague. Well, you don't have to blame it on plague, do you? I mean, I'd be belligerent if I were off my joy. Who knows? I might go around murdering people in the middle of the night and leave a trail of corpses missing their kidneys. But I do take my joy, don't I? If those poor wastrels would just go back on their joy, you wouldn't hear another thing about plague. But that's not the half of it. Mrs. E.H. Undershaft of the Tyning Maiden Home claims to have heard plague-afflicted wastrels speaking in Old English. What an imagination you have, Mrs. Undershaft. Now, I remember when you used to read as Beowulf and did all the voices. Mrs. Undershaw, they're probably speaking English and you've just gone slightly deaf. So, there's nothing to worry about. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next week when we talk about scurvy. If your teeth are falling out, not to worry. You're in fine British seafaring tradition. This is Dr. Jack Worthing, and remember to stay well, well, well. And welcome to today's edition of Well, 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 the show where we talk about how to be your physical best. Now, some of you have written in about feeling malaise and lethargy. Now, these are vague symptoms, and the first thing I can recommend to you is, if you're feeling a bit down in the dumps, pop another joy. Everybody wakes up feeling a little bit down sometimes. I call it waking down. And all you need to know is that you never have to feel bad about feeling bad. In fact, you don't have to put up with it at all. Being in Wellington Wells means never having to say, I'm sorry. Now, thanks to modern English science, we have the perfect fix for the blahs. Never be afraid to up your joy. Only you know how much you need, or just ask a doctor and he'll fix you right up, even if you've got to ask him to. But look, there are some things that joy won't fix, though it'll certainly make you feel better about them. Let's say you feel perfectly happy, but you're just having a lot of trouble getting out of bed. What could it be? Ask yourself a few questions. Do you feel pain in your bones? Are you having trouble catching your breath? Do you find that you bruise easily? Are your teeth a little loose in their sockets and you're under 70 years old? Is your mouth often dry? Do you have scorbutic tongue? Other symptoms you might have are red or purple spots on the skin, especially on your legs that look like this. Do you find your muscles are sore even when you haven't been overusing them? Well, you may have scurvy. And congratulations, this is one of our traditional English enemies. And like all traditional English enemies, we've beaten it before, yes, and we'll beat it again. As you know, England has traditionally ruled the seas. Rule Britannia, Britannia rules the waves. Britons never, never, never shall be slaves. And that means that our ships have traditionally been out at sea for long stretches at a time. Sailors used to eat nothing but ship's biscuits and salt pork. I could do with some salt pork right now. But if you eat nothing but, you're going to get sick. You see, your body needs vitamin C, but biscuits and salt pork don't have any vitamin C. So sailors and long English voyagers will get sick. And they didn't have joy to make them feel any better either. Well, a lot of Englishmen put their scientific brains to the challenge, and it was soon discovered that fresh vegetables would cure the problem right away. But how do you get fresh veg on board a boat that's not going to dock for months? Well, Captain James Cook discovered that if he took limes on board, it could cure the sailors. But how do you get sailors to drink lime juice? Well, you put it in their rum, don't you? They're not going to give up their rum, are they? Even if it tastes a bit limey. And once they were drinking their daily rum with lime juice, well, they got to liking it. And that was called grog. Yes, and that's why we Brits are called limeys, because we learned to put limes in our grog. Citrus fruits are just packed with vitamin C. So, why are you getting scurvy when you're not on a boat? Well, I'm afraid some of you have been a bit naughty. You're eating bread and meat, and you're not having your traditional English 2 veg. Some of you aren't even eating your potatoes. Imagine that. Well, bread does not contain vitamin C. And if you're eating millet bread or moss cakes, while they taste perfectly acceptable, they're not good sources of the sea. And I'm sad to say, though I've developed quite a taste for it, Victory meat does not contain any vitamin C at all. Canned and preserved meats are generally very poor sources of vitamin C. Now, if you were on Captain Cook's ship discovering Australia, New Zealand, and Hawaii, you'd just have a bit of grog and, well, you'd be right as English rain. But you probably haven't seen a lime or an orange or a lemon in a few years, and, well, neither have I. But not to worry. Most fresh meat contains vitamin C too. Lucky rats, they make their own vitamin C. So, if you can get some fresh meat at the butcher, you're all set. And if you can't get fresh meat, then most fresh veg contains lots of vitamin C. Now, you're going to have to restrain your cooking instincts a bit, because if you boil veg until they're nice and gummy, you'll boil out all the C. So, make sure you eat some of your veg fresh. Can't get fresh veg? Remember, lots of weeds contain vitamin C. Scurvy grass is named for stopping scurvy in its tracks. Sorrel has 48 milligrams of vitamin C for every 100 grams you eat. Chicory has 24. Clover and dandelions are smashing sources of vitamin C. And they're all around us. In fact, I think it's safe to say that just about anything that's green and grows in the ground contains some vitamin C. So in a pinch, just go round to the neighbours and ask if they'd mind terribly if you ate their tulips. I'm sure they'd be reasonable. And remember, no matter what, make sure you're taking enough joy. There's no excuse anymore for feeling bad. You don't have to. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again next time when we'll talk about malaria. It's not nearly as bad as it sounds. Most people survive it. This is Dr. Jack Worthing saying my prescription for you is stay well, well, well. Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. Well, sit down next to the fire, if you've got one, and wrap a blanket around yourselves, and I'll tell you something that happened. Tonight's story is called The Pied Piper, and some people say it actually took place, and some people say it actually took place in our very own Hamelin. But who knows? The past is deep and dark and filled with mists and strange things that move in the night. It's best not to go into it. Strange things happen in fairy tales, but even stranger and nastier things happen in the past. Thank goodness we're not living then, and our days are bright and filled with joy. Once upon a time, there was a town called Hamelin. It wasn't the name of the town. That's just what it was called. It was a happy town, full of rich merchants and hard-working smiths and beautiful girls and jovial lads. But awful things can happen to good people. And little did the people of Hamelin know, but dark times were coming. There was a hard winter when wolves came down from the hills and attacked the sheep. And the wolves brought crows which would wait for the sight of rotting meat and then descend in swarms. And some said, though no one ever saw it, that the crows did not always wait for death. And some said it was not only wolves who were murdering animals out in the fields. The crows knew that they only said caw. But if the winter was hard, the summer was harder still. For the summer brought rats. They came onto the beaches from a ship that had sailed from France. At first there were just a few, but soon there were hundreds of rats, then thousands of them. They swarmed into the town, and they said to themselves in their rat speech, "Here is a rich town. Let us eat everything we can." So they ate the grain, they chewed their way into cupboards to eat the cheese, they even ate chickens when they could quarter them. Nothing was safe. The villagers, well, they were at their wits' end. If you can kill one rat, you can set traps for 12 rats. But who can kill 1,000 rats? As long as there are 2 rats, in weeks there'll be dozens, and in weeks after that, there will be thousands again. The villagers were in despair. But one day, a tall man came to town. He was a piper. He played a pipe. So they called him the Pied Piper, for he wore a coat of many colors. He was not very good at playing the pipes, but when the villagers told him to stop playing, he told them, "Although I'm not very good at playing to entertain people, I know what to play to rats." Well, who would play music for rats, you ask? Well, the piper never explained, but he offered the town to pipe their rats away. He said, "It'll cost you a great deal of money. But I promise you, when it's all over, there will be no more rats." He even promised that if he left a single rat, they need pay him nothing. Now, the villagers of Hamlin were not poor, but they liked their money. Still, they thought they would never have to pay the piper. I mean, after all, who could possibly rid the town of every last rat? So they agreed to the piper's terms. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow evening, and I'll tell you the rest of the story of the Pied Piper of Hamlin. Will the town get rid of their rats? And how will they pay the piper? It's a lovely story, and I'm sure you'll enjoy how it ends. For now, this is Jack Worthing saying good night all, and see you tomorrow. Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. I haven't finished the story of the Pied Piper of Hamlin, have I? Well, gather round the telly, citizens, gather round, and I'll tell you how it ends. We last left the town of Hamlin filled with rats, horrible rats, eating them out of house and home. But a piper in a motley coat has promised to get rid of every last rat by playing music to them. But he expects a lot of money, and they've agreed to pay for it. What will happen? The next day, the piper came into town, and this time he had a different pipe with him. It was a tiny pipe made of horn, and no one could even hear the music that it played. But soon, out of every barn and every field, out of every kitchen and every storehouse, all of the rats of the town swarmed towards the Pied Piper. They came out of the church, they came out of the town hall, they came up out of the well, they came out of the cupboards, they came out of the haystacks. Soon, the entire village square was covered in rats, until you could not see a bare patch of dirt. And then, the piper began to walk. He walked away from the village. He walked into the dark forest in a direction that no one thought had a path. No one knew exactly where he went, for no one wanted to go anywhere near the enormous swarm of rats. Well, the villagers celebrated. They took their cheese out of their strong boxes, and they took their bread out of their stone ovens. Everything they'd been afraid of the rats eating, they took out. But as the villagers were settling down to drinking, the Pied Piper returned, and he told the people, "And now, it is time to pay the piper." Well, the villagers, they were wicked people. They asked the piper if he'd killed all the rats, and he promised that they'd never see the rats again. At this, the villagers were delighted. "Why should we pay the piper?" they asked each other. "The rats are gone." They told him to be off, and when he demanded his money, they beat him until he was bleeding, and they threatened to throw him in the well until he drowned. The piper left, and they thought that they'd never see him again. But the next morning, the piper was back. This time, he had a very large, long pipe made out of long, long bone. You could still see the bruises on his face as he walked into the village square. But he did not seem afraid. He did not seem like a man who could ever be afraid. The villagers gathered to warn him off. Hadn't he had enough punishment? Be off with him? But then he began to play his long bone pipe. The sounds were so low that no one could hear him. But they were all struck dumb, and they found that they could not move to strike the piper, nor could they leave. And out of every house came every villager who was not already in the town square, out of the church, and out of the town hall, and out of the pub, and out of the baker's, and out of the cheese shop. Even the lame smith limped from his forge to the town square. And then the piper began to walk. He walked away from the village. He walked into the dark forests in a direction that no one thought had a path. And the villagers all followed him. Only the lame smith couldn't keep up, although he tried his best. And it's a good thing too, for otherwise we'd never know what happened. For the villagers disappeared into the dark woods. The smith lost all track of them. Among the trees he could not tell what direction the piping was, and soon he couldn't hear it at all for the songs of the birds and the whisper of the trees. He lay down, and he wept for a day and a night, for the music had so moved him that he wished he'd been fast enough to follow it. The smith came out of the forest, and he came to an inn, and there he told the story of the villagers of Hamelin, and he waited a year and a day for them to come back. And on the 366th day, he hanged himself. The town of Hamelin rotted in the rain until nothing was left of it but misshapen mounds that strangers thought must be from ancient times. The villagers, they were never seen again, nor was the piper, though perhaps he was. For there are villages in old books that are not there now, and who knows if they too vanished in the woods to the piper's tune. Who knows if this is a true story or just a fairy tale? But somehow you know that it must be true, because who could invent such a horror? That's the story of the Pied Piper of Hamelin. What a wonderful story. I hope you enjoyed hearing it as much as I enjoyed telling it. And remember, stay at home at night or terrible things may happen in the dark. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for another bedtime story. Good night all. See you tomorrow. It's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. Well, gather round, citizens, gather round, and I'll tell you a bedtime story. Tonight's story is called Little Red Riding Hood. Once, a young woman was told by her older sister to bring a pie and some milk to their mother, who lived in the forest. The young woman was known as Little Red Riding Hood because she was not very tall, and she liked to wear a red cloak that her mother had knitted for her because it went with her red hair and her red mouth. As she was walking through the forest, a wolf came up to her, for in those days wolves roamed free in the woods. The wolf asked her, "Hello, little English girl, where are you going?" Little Red Riding Hood was not afraid of wolves, and she had a very good knife in her basket. "I'm going to my mother's house in the woods," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Ah, which path are you taking?" asked the wolf. "The low road or the high road?" "The low road," said Little Red Riding Hood, for it was the shortest. "Ah, then we must short part ways," said the wolf, "for I'm taking the high road." And Little Red Riding Hood took the low road, and the wolf took the high road. But the wolf could travel very fast when he wanted to. And though he was traveling on the high road, running up and down the ridges overlooking the forest, he reached Little Red Riding Hood's mother's house long before Little Red Riding Hood was even in shouting distance, and while the sun was still high in the sky. "Knock, knock," said the wolf in a not very good imitation of Little Red Riding Hood's voice. "Who's there?" asked Little Red Riding Hood's mother. "It's the Little Red Riding Hood," said the wolf. "Well, you don't sound a little bit like my daughter," said Little Red Riding Hood's mother. "Ah, yeah, I'm hoarse and out of breath, for I've been running away from the wolf who lives in the forest. Please, let me in, because I can see him coming for me." "Oh, no," said the wolf. "Well, you'd better come inside," said Little Red Riding Hood's mother, and she opened the door. And the wolf quickly cut her throat and poured her blood into a bottle. He ate most of her, but saved some of the juiciest cuts. These he sliced onto a platter, but he was very good with a knife, even for a wolf. Then the wolf put on the mother's pajamas and got into bed. I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in tomorrow evening, and I'll tell you the rest of the story of Little Red Riding Hood. It's a lovely story, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the rest of it. For now, this is Jack Worthing saying good night all, and I'll see you tomorrow. Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. Well, gather round, citizens, gather round, and I'll tell you a bedtime story. After a while, the wolf heard Little Red Riding Hood knocking on the door. "Who is it?" sang out the wolf. "It's Little Red Riding Hood," said Little Red Riding Hood. "Come and see in here," sang out the wolf. Come in." "Mother, I've come to bring you a pie and some milk," said Little Red Riding Hood. Yeah, good. Put some on the cupboard. I will eat and drink some later," said the wolf. And Little Red Riding Hood did as she was told. "You sound different," said Little Red Riding Hood. I'm not myself today," said the wolf. "You know how it is. Why don't you have some wine?" said the wolf. "There's a bottle on the table." So Little Red Riding Hood drank her mother's blood. And the cat said, "Meow, you're drinking your mother's blood." But the wolf said, "Do cats ever tell the truth? Throw a shoe at the cat and he won't bother you any more." So Little Red Riding Hood threw her left shoe at the cat, and he never bothered her again. "That makes me hungry," said Little Red Riding Hood. "I got you some ham," said the wolf. "Why don't you make yourself a ham sandwich?" So Little Red Riding Hood made a ham sandwich out of her mother's ham, and she ate it right up. "This is delicious," she said. "Squeak," said a mouse. "You're eating your mother's flesh." "Oh, the mice, they're always lying," said the wolf. "Anyway, you can't be picky about your food these days. Throw your other shoe at the mouse, and he'll never bother you again." So Little Red Riding Hood threw her right shoe at the mouse and killed it. It never bothered her again. "What should I do now, Mother?" asked Little Red Riding Hood. "Take off your clothes and get in the bed with me," said the wolf. "Well, what should I do with my apron?" asked Little Red Riding Hood. "Throw it in the fire. You won't need it any more." So Little Red Riding Hood threw her apron in the fire. "What shall I do with my dress?" she asked the wolf. "Throw it in the fire. You won't need it any more," said the wolf. So Little Red Riding Hood threw her dress in the fire. "What shall I do with my petticoat?" asked Little Red Riding Hood. "Throw it in the fire. You won't need it any more." So Little Red Riding Hood threw her petticoat in the fire. "That is good enough," said the wolf. "Cut it here, next to me." So Little Red Riding Hood got under the blankets with the wolf. "Oh, Mother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what big eyes you have!" "All the better for seeing you in the dark," said the wolf. "Oh, Mother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what a long nose you have!" "All the better for smelling you," said the wolf. "And don't you smell delicious, my sweet?" "Oh, Mother," said Little Red Riding Hood, "what long teeth you have!" "All the better for eating you, my dear," said the wolf, and he ate her right up. And then he ran off into the forest and was never seen again. Little girl, this seems to say, never stop upon your way. Never trust a stranger friend. No one knows how it will end. As you're pretty, so be wise. Wolves may lurk in every guise. Handsome they may be, and kind, sweet or charming. Never mind. Now as then, 'tis simple truth. Sweetest tongue hath sharpest tooth. And that's the story of Little Red Riding Hood and the Wolf. What a wonderful story. I hope you enjoyed hearing it as much as I enjoyed reading it. Do you want to know what the real moral is? The real moral of the story is, don't go out at night, or the wolf will kill you. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for another bedtime story. Good night, all. See you tomorrow. Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good wellies to cuddle up in bed. You don't want to be out after dark, do you? Foggy Jack might come for you. And then where would you be? In several places at once, wouldn't you? Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. Well, curl up in front of the telly, and Uncle Jack will tell you a story. Tonight's story is called Hansel and Gretel. Once upon a time there lived a poor woodcutter and his wife and his two aged parents. The old man's name was Hansel, and the old woman's name was Gretel. There was little to eat, and when a hard winter came across the land, so hard that the wolves prowled the crossroads at night, the woodcutter could no longer feed his parents. He lay in bed with his wife, and they discussed what to do. The woodcutter's wife said, "Here's what we'll do, Liebling. We will lead them deep into the woods, yeah? To gather the firewood, okay? And then we will trick them, and we will leave them there. And natürlich, there will be enough bread for the both of us." For you see, they were not her parents, and they didn't particularly like her. Now at first the woodcutter said, "Well, I don't know, maybe I should lead you in the woods instead." But his wife said, "Oh, it's a funny man. No, they are old and they do not work anymore, okay?" And the woodcutter had to admit, she had a point. What the woodcutter did not know was that his parents had overheard the entire conversation, for they had very good hearing for old people, and they'd not been sleeping well. And Hansel said to Gretel, "Our son's going to leave us in the woods to starve. What shall we do?" Gretel said, "Let us gather bright pebbles by the light of the moon." The next day at dawn, the woodcutter and his wife led his parents deep, deep into the woods, deeper than they'd ever gone to cut firewood. The wife made a fire for them and said, "Rest by the fire while we chop some wood." And soon enough, they heard the sound of chopping. Hansel and Gretel thought perhaps their son had not left them after all. But late in the evening, the wind died down, and so did the sound of chopping. For it was only a branch that the woodcutter had rigged to bang against a tree in the wind. But Hansel and Gretel, they dropped bright pebbles all along the path into the woods, and they were able to follow them all the way back to the woodcutter's house, which had been their house when they raised him. When they came to the door, the woodcutter's wife, she was alarmed to see them. "You wicked people! Your son has been crying ever since you left him. He thought you did not want to come back." That night the woodcutter told his wife, "It's a gift from God. We don't have to leave my parents in the woods after all." "Oh, you fool! Idiot!" said the woodcutter's wife. "Do we have more bread heute Abend than we did yesterday?" And the woodcutter had already agreed once to abandon his parents, so he didn't really have a leg to stand on, did he? So he agreed to lead them out into the woods the next morning. That night, Hansel went to gather bright pebbles by the light of the moon. But the woodcutter's wife had locked the door, so he couldn't gather any. In the morning, Hansel begged his son for a crust of bread to eat on the forest path, but he did not eat it. Instead, as his son led him deep into the woods, he broke off small bits and dropped them on the forest path. All along the way, Hansel spoke to his son of happier days, when they both had been young and the land was fat. He was hoping to soften his son's heart, and the woodcutter, well, he smiled and nodded. For when you're going to kill a man, it costs nothing to be polite. And again, the woodcutter's wife made them a fire and made them lie down and rest by it, while the woodcutter and his wife went into the forest to chop wood. But they heard no branch banging against a tree, for the time was past for pretenses. Hansel said to Gretel, "Let us find our way home before night falls, because it's very cold and they're not coming back for us." And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. We'll have to continue this delightful story tomorrow night. Did Hansel and Gretel find their way home? And did the woodcutter welcome them back? And did they all live happily ever after? I hope not. What kind of fairy tale do you think this is? Tune in tomorrow to find out. Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to hop into bed for the night. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. I haven't finished the story of Hansel and Gretel. Well, snuggle up by your telly or radio, and I'll tell you how it ends. When we left Hansel and Gretel, their son had just abandoned them in the woods for the second time. But Hansel and Gretel had cleverly left a trail of breadcrumbs for them to find their way back. But it was a very hard winter, and starving birds had already pecked up all of the breadcrumbs. And snow began to fall, which covered up anything the birds had left. Hansel and Gretel could not find their way home. Instead, they only wandered deeper into the woods. After 3 days of trudging in the snow without anything to eat, they were on the verge of dying of exposure when they came upon a small house. A white bird stood upon the roof in spite of the snow, and now and then pecked at it. And so they realized that the entire house was made out of gingerbread, and the windows were made out of clear sugar. They were starving, of course, so Hansel helped himself to a chunk of the eaves, while Gretel broke off some of the window frame, which was made of frosting. And then a voice came from inside. "Nibble, nibble, little mouse. Who's nibbling at my house?" They answered, "It's only the wind which nibbles away at all things." But then Gretel poked her finger through the window in order to break off a piece of the clear sugar, and a witch suddenly came out of the house. Now, you see, they could tell she was a witch because she was beautiful and young. But she moved carefully, like someone who had once been old. Now, they expected her to be angry, but she was kind, or so she seemed. "You poor dears," she said. "Come into my house and sit by the fire, and you can have all the gingerbread and cake you like." And they ate gingerbread and cake and pancakes, and soon they fell asleep, for they were exhausted. But the witch was only pretending to be kind to Hansel and Gretel. Really, she intended to cook and eat them. In fact, she had made the gingerbread house in order to lure someone to eat. For witches believe, I am told, that if you eat someone, you get their power. Hansel woke up in a cell made not of sugar, but iron bars and oak beams, and
try as he might, no help came to him. And the witch woke Gretel, saying, "Get up! Cook a nice meal for your husband, for he's to be fattened up." So Gretel cooked up an omelette full of cheese and pancakes and biscuits. Biscuits for breakfast? Well, it might have been wonderful if it wasn't so evil. And the witch watched Hansel eat, planning how to cook him up. But then Gretel hit her hard as she could in the head with the firewood axe, and the witch never looked at anything again. Some say Gretel did something cleverer to the witch, like tricking her into the oven. But it doesn't pay to be too clever, you know. Gretel let her husband out of his cell, and the two of them rejoiced and ate as much of the house as they could stomach. And as they munched and crunched the house, they discovered there were pearls and precious stones hidden in the gingerbread. Hansel filled his pockets, and Gretel filled her apron. By now, the sun had come out, and Hansel and Gretel were able to work out which way their home was. So they walked home, excited to tell their son all about the pearls and rubies and sapphires they'd found in the house. The woodcutter's wife answered their door. The woodcutter's wife... Here it comes. The woodcutter's wife answered the door, and, well, Gretel quickly cut her down with an axe. Good old Gretel. And her son quickly forgave her, for blood is thicker than water. And the moral of the story is, if you want someone dead, do it yourself. Well, no, that's not actually the moral of the story. This story doesn't have a moral. Good stories never do. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in tomorrow evening, and I'll tell you the rest of the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. It's a lovely story, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the rest of it. For now, this is Jack Worthing saying good night all. See you in the morning.
Well, it's getting late, isn't it? It's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. You don't want to be out after dark, do you? Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. Well, curl up in front of the telly and Uncle Jack will tell you a story. Tonight's story is called Goldilocks and the Three Bears. Once upon a time, there were three bears who lived in a house in the woods. They were called Henry Bear, Jane Bear, and Jane's father, Old Edward Bear. They had barely enough food to feed themselves, but it was enough. Every morning, Henry Bear had a big bowl of porridge because he was big, and Jane had a medium-sized bowl because she was medium-sized, and Old Edward Bear had a small bowl, for though he was wise, he was tiny and needed to preserve his strength. And he didn't need to eat that much either. And Henry had a big chair, and Jane had a medium-sized chair, and Old Edward had a small chair that was padded and very comfortable. And each of them had a bed to sleep in, a small bed for Old Edward Bear, and a medium-sized bed for Jane Bear, and a big bed for Henry Bear. Every morning, Jane Bear made porridge for the three of them, just enough so they would have energy throughout the day, and she gave them each their joy, 1 pill for Old Edward Bear, 2 for herself, and 3 for Big Henry Bear. They took their joy right away, of course, because they knew that it's always best to start the day with joy. And then they would go out for a walk in the woods to find berries to put in their porridge while it cooled, because they knew that berries are very healthy in porridge. But one morning, while they were out, a young woman came by their house. Her name was Goldilocks, for she had golden hair, of which she was very proud. And she was always getting into mischief and causing her neighbors trouble, because she thought she was entitled to everything because of her pretty golden hair. Well, the three bears were sensible bears, and they'd locked up their house. It's always best to leave your house locked, because you can never be too careful. But when Goldilocks came by the bears' house one morning, and noticed that the bears were not there, she said to herself, "What a nice house! I wonder what is in it. So she checked all the windows, and sure enough, one of the window latches was loose. Goldilocks said to herself, "Oh, stupid bears, they have not protected themselves so well." So she pried the window open and went into the bear's house, even though she did not belong there. And she found herself in front of the dining table. Now, Goldilocks was not particularly hungry, and she was used to much better food than porridge, but she believed that anything she could take belonged to her. So she decided to taste the porridge. First, she decided to sit in the large chair and try the large bowl. "Oh, this porridge is much too hot," she said to herself. Then she decided to sit in the small chair and try the small bowl. "Oh, this porridge is much too cold," she said to herself. So she decided to sit in the medium-sized chair and taste from the medium-sized bowl. "Oh, yum is perfect," she said to herself, and she ate up all the porridge in the bowl. Well, eating all that porridge made Goldilocks very sleepy. "I wonder what sort of beds these bears have," she said to herself. So she looked for the bedroom, and as the bears had a very small house, she found it right away. And she saw that there were 3 beds. At first, she tried the smallest bed, which was old Edward Bear's bed. But this bed was much too small for her, and no matter how much she thrashed around, her feet hung out. So she tried the big bed, which was Henry Bear's. But the big bed was very high, and no matter where she rolled around in the bed, Goldilocks was afraid that she'd fall out while she was asleep. So she tried the medium-sized bed, which was Jane Bear's bed. And she said to herself, "This is just right. I shall make this one my bed." And in no time at all, she was fast asleep. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow evening, and I'll tell you the rest of the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. It's a lovely story, and I'm sure you'll enjoy the rest of it. For now, this is Jack Worthing saying good night all, and see you tomorrow. Well, it's getting late, isn't it? And it's time for all good citizens to be getting ready to go to bed. Would you like me to read you a bedtime story? Of course you would. I haven't finished the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Well, gather round, citizens, gather round, and I'll tell you how it ends. We last left Goldilocks fast asleep in the 3 bears' house. She's eaten Jane Bear's porridge and made a mess of the dining room and the bedroom, and she's still asleep in Jane Bear's bed. Well, soon enough, the 3 bears came home from their walk through the forest. They hadn't found many berries, just enough to flavor their porridge and keep them from getting scurvy, but they were looking forward to breakfast. But when they came into their dining room, they could see that something was not quite right. Henry Bear saw that there was a spoon sitting in the middle of his porridge. "Someone's been at my porridge," he said in his great big gruff bear voice. And then old Edward Bear saw that there was a spoon in his bowl of porridge. "And someone's been at my porridge too," said old Edward Bear. And Jane Bear looked at her bowl, and she was very upset. "Someone's been at my porridge too, and they ate it all up." Well, she was very upset indeed, for now she'd nothing to eat except for a few berries. Well, Henry Bear and old Edward Bear each gave her some of their porridge. But now they were all very hungry, because none of them had had enough to eat. And bears need to eat a lot of food when they can, because they know that winter is coming, and there won't be anything to eat. Since they hadn't had enough to eat, they decided to rest a bit, because asleep is a poor man's dinner. But when they got to the bedroom, old Edward Bear looked at his bed and saw how the covers had been thrown on the floor, and he said, "Someone's been lying in my bed." And Henry Bear looked at his bed and saw how the covers had all been rumpled, and he said, "Aye, and someone's been lying in my bed and all." And Jane Bear looked at her bed, and at first it looked like it was still neatly made. But then she saw Goldilocks. "And someone's been lying in my bed," she shrieked, "and she's still there." At that, Goldilocks woke up with a start, and she saw the three bears staring at her, and she screamed, "Get out! Get out, all of you! Get out of my house!" Maybe because she thought she was in her own house, or maybe she thought that she could take the bear's house from them if she could scream loud enough. So Henry Bear hit her with his big bear claw and knocked her head clean off her shoulders. Oh. They felt much better. Then they ate the rest of her, tore her apart and ate her. They felt very good indeed, because now they'd had enough to eat. And all three of them lived happily ever after. And Goldilocks, she never bothered them again. And the moral of the story is, don't go wandering round at night, or you might get killed. Well, that's the story of Goldilocks and the Three Bears. What a wonderful story. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed reading it. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow for another bedtime story. This is Jack Worthing telling you to have a lovely night and pleasant dreams. See you tomorrow.
Have you ever wondered what life will be like 20 years into the future? That would be the year 1984. Yes, it sounds like a very long way away, doesn't it? But 1984 may be closer than you think. At the Wellington Wells House of the Future, you can imagine yourself in 1984 when machines will clean your house while you nap. That'll make the wife happy, won't it? And we'll also have pills that replace food, so you'll never have to eat again. Beef Wellington. Delicious. Now, the inventors at the Department of Scientific and Industrial Research have all sorts of amazing things in store. We'll have typewriters that type the words for you as you say them. And imagine being able to listen to your own music anywhere you go. In phone booths. Yes, there'll be a built-in record player. Just bring your favourite records along when you go for a spin in your flying car. And of course, we'll always have our joy. We couldn't do without that, could we? It won't change a bit. It's perfect, just the way it is.
And now it's time for the Uncle Jack Etiquette Minute. You may be wondering, how can I fit in better in Hamlin Village? Well, it's easy. To get along, go along. If someone tells you it's a lovely day, agree with them. Because of course, it's always a lovely day in Hamlin Village, so don't be afraid of talking to people first. They'll appreciate it. Now, I'm assuming, of course, that you're decently dressed. Clothes make the man, eh? Indeed, naked people have almost no influence at all in society. And don't dress in rags either, or people might think you're a wastrel. Now, what should you do if people are staring at you? Maybe they're asking you if you remember to take your joy. Who cares? Just pop another and they'll congratulate you and go on about their day. And if things seem to be getting a bit hectic, remember, you can always sit on a bench, relax and open the Hamlin au Courant. Take a load off. No one will bother you when you're sitting on a bench. Unless you've made them very angry. Well, or, I don't know, watch Jack Worthing on television. I hear he's very good. Well, I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in tomorrow for another Etiquette Minute with Jack Worthing. That's me.
And welcome to today's edition of Great English Victories, the show where the English win in the end. Today we're going to talk about the famous battle of Agincourt. As you may know from Shakespeare's play, in 1415, King Henry V was at war with France.
Now, by rights, Henry was King of France through his great-grandfather Edward III. But the French, typically, had weaseled out of it by claiming that under Salic law, he couldn't inherit through female lines. Of course, that's not what Salic law said. It only said that women couldn't become King of France. So, after fruitless negotiations with the French, who couldn't be trusted in any event, Henry took an army to the continent. Now, the war did not go spectacularly well. And it is worth noting that many English wars have not gone spectacularly well at first. World War I did not go spectacularly well at first, with the Germans pushing deep into France before they could be stopped at the Marne. But the English always win in the end. But I'm getting ahead of myself. In 1415, Henry V got off to rather a late start, only sailing to the continent in August. He besieged Harfleur, which held out longer than expected, only surrendering on the 22nd of September. There wasn't much time left in the campaign season before all of the continent got wet and cold and muddy. And in those days, everyone wanted to be home in time for the harvest. So on October 8th, Henry decided to raid across France towards his fortress of Calais. He wanted to demonstrate his ownership of the French coast, of which he was the rightful feudal liege. Now, the French were afraid to bring him to battle, so they kept on the other side of the River Somme, the future site of one of the greatest English victories of World War I. By doing so, they prevented him from crossing. But finally, Henry maneuvered his troops across the Somme and headed for Calais. For days, the French refused battle, even though they outnumbered the English. No doubt they were afraid of Henry's brave English soldiers, even though they were fighting on their home territory. They played for time and pretended to negotiate, but they were blocking King Henry's way home. Finally, the two armies camped nearby each other, near the fortress of Agincourt. Even though Henry was outnumbered 6-1, he ordered his troops into battle the following day, on St. Crispin's Day, October 25th, 1415. I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tomorrow night, I'll tell you all about how the brave English won the Battle of Agincourt. Last night, I was telling you how King Henry V and his 5,000 doughty yeomen found themselves at the bottom of a hill, facing 30,000 armored French knights. The English were arrayed at the bottom of the hill. Now, you'd think that would be very dangerous with so many French cavalry at the top of the hill. But the French spent most of the morning not attacking. I imagine they were probably having croissants and combing their hair. So Henry advanced. Imagine lowly yeoman archers advancing on armored cavalry. They moved into range and set up their stakes in the ground and proceeded to torment the French with arrows. Finally, the French lined up and charged down the hill. They expected to just sweep Henry's troops away. But instead, they ran into a deadly hailstorm of sharp English arrows. These bodkin arrows could pierce armor. Rank after rank of noble Frenchmen spurred their horses down the muddy hill, and each rank was torn apart by English arrows. The last rank could barely get down the hill, for their horses had so churned up the mud that they were wallowing in it. After they ran out of knights, the French did what they do best. They surrendered. Agincourt is one of the greatest English victories. Outnumbered and trapped, the English outfought 6 times their numbers and made it back home. The final peace treaty, years later, made Henry's son, Henry VI, the king not only of England, but France too. So you see, the English always win in the end. No matter how dark it looks, we muddle on through until, with fortitude and bravery, we turn the situation around. I know members of the Home Army are listening in. You are our heroes.
And I know that you'll not only protect us from any future invasions by foreigners, but when the time is right, you'll take the battle to the enemy. I salute you, Home Army soldiers. You are true English stock. And I'm afraid we've come to the end of our time. Tune in again tomorrow night when we look at the Napoleonic Wars and their climax at the great English victory at Waterloo.